in this session, CFA Society Nigeria. And so what we are going to talk about today is investment thesis and research report writing. Of course, everybody understands the objectives for this. So for the research challenge, how to put together a good investment research report on equity. Right. One has to go through some slides
Hello, Larry. Please, sorry to cut you in there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think there's an issue with your network. You seem to be breaking in and out.
Yes.
Yes, please. It seems to be breaking in and out. So maybe you might want to check that out and then. We still cannot hear you. If you're speaking, maybe you're muted right now. Can anybody hear him, or is it just me?
I can't hear him actually.
Okay. So please just check that out and. Oh, sorry for the breaking transmission. He'll join in shortly.
Hello, please, can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure what the issue is, but I couldn't hear Chamaka for some time. But is it stable now? I don't know what.
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, let's just hope that we get it right to the end. So, yes. So I was just saying that what we want to go through in about an hour from now is investment research report writing, and especially focusing on the bit of investment thesis, how to create one, what should go into the entire report, how should you structure, or what's like a good way to structure an investment research report. And then in between, we'd also see I would show some examples perhaps. Okay, I'm trying to share my screen now. I'm not sure if it's even going. Please just give me a second. Let me try and fix the screen share.
While he's trying to fix his screen, Just a few housekeeping rules, and just to reiterate, I believe this is everything. Just a reminder to everybody. Please do not unmute except it is absolutely necessary. If you have any questions, please just drop them in the chat, or you can also use the question and answer session to communicate your question or reactions to anything that is being said. If you have any questions, you can also raise your hands, and then you'll be asked to unmute so that you can ask your question. That is, if you prefer to speak. Okay, so I think we'll just wait for him right now to fix his screen. Thank you. Hello, Damilari.
Hi, sorry, I'm still unable to share my screen. I don't know what the issue is. That's what I'm trying to check.
Okay. Hello, Damilari, if you don't mind, can you share the material so I can share my screen for you from my end? We can see your screen, but we cannot hear you. So if you're speaking, you're probably muted, but we can see your screen now. Still cannot hear you. Still cannot hear you. Maybe you can try joining with your phone as well, so that you can use your laptop to present while you use your phone to speak. See if that will work, because we cannot hear you right now. Or it's probably because of the pods you have on.
Is it my network or what's that?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I'm sorry. It's MacBook issues. So it required me to put some password to be able to share screen. Apologies for that. So I believe you can see my screen as well now. So I'll just just continue from here now. Right. Okay, so what we want to talk about, like I said, is investment thesis and research reports writing. So I'm trying to just remove this. Okay, I'm then full screen. Okay, so in the time we have, we'll talk about, this is an outline of what we're going to discuss quickly. Elements and structure of an investment research report, the content and best practice, of creating an executive summary, writing an investment thesis, integrating analysis into the report, and then what should you have in your appendix, and then some other general tips on how to have a very good investment research report, and then would end with some, questions and answers, or look at some examples that we have. But in between, we might also look at one or two examples in between as we go on. Okay, so now when you have an investment research report, what are the key things that you look out for, or that you should integrate as someone that wants to write now? So if, as a reader, the best way to write a report is to ask yourself, if you are the user of that report, what do you want to see? What are the key things that you would expect to be on that report? And that can guide you to know what to put into a report when you are the writer of that report, right? So the first thing that you want to highlight in any report is an executive summary. Now, all these points that you have here, all these key headers, we'll still look at them in a little, depth as we go on. So an executive summary is more or less like the first thing you want to see in an investment research report. And when talk about an executive summary, it's more or less saying, if you have a 10-page report, or you have a 30-page report, or an 100-page report, or whatever number of pages it is, you give your reader a sense of what is in that report, an idea of the entirety of the report. What is the basic thing that you're trying to communicate in that report? What is the, conclusion of that report? What are the things that you considered? Of course, in a very summarized version, so it's a way of saying, I've written maybe a 50-page report, but in just 3 paragraphs or 4 paragraphs, just a page, I want to give an idea, an overview of the entirety of that report. That is what an executive summary is for. So it's something that is very concise, very brief, and it just quickly gives, an insight into what the entire report is about and what the conclusion of that report is. Then you would have your introduction. Of course, for the purpose of this meeting and of the entire exercise that you are going through, it's an equity research report where you want to, pitch a company to say whether to buy the company or to hold, to buy shares of the company, or to hold or to sell if you currently hold it, based on your research findings and your conclusion. So you want to give an introduction into that company. What is the company all about? What is the operating model of the company? How does the company generate revenue, for instance? And what are the major factors affecting the company? Just an highlight of the company and why it is the entire the you identify the purpose of your report as well, in terms of, yes, we are rating this company this based on social factors that we've identified in the in the in the course of our research, right? So that's what your introduction is about, just essentially introducing the company of interest in your report. Then the next two sections are more or less your biggest sections of the report, in terms of the content that go into them. One is, you talk about the investment thesis, right? Where you then try to say, okay, you've concluded that we should buy this company, or an investor should buy shares of the company you are writing your report on. Why did you come to that conclusion? How did you come to that conclusion? So that is what the investment thesis is about. What is the logic behind that conclusion of your report? And then what are the key elements that are driving that your recommendation? So if you said, largely your recommendation can either be a buy, a sell, or an hold. Some other companies, in some other investment climates, they use terms like overweight, underweight, things like that. But largely in Nigeria, and for the most part, globally, you have either a buy recommendation, an hold recommendation, or a sell recommendation. Now, what are the things that informed, what are the factors that informed that your recommendation, or that informed that your conclusion as to how to deal in the shares of that company? So, and then for every buy recommendation, definitely, if you say buy or you even say sell, there's typically a risk to your recommendation. So if you said it's just like saying for every good event, there's always a risk attached to it. You can't be always 100% accurate, or you might not be to be 100% accurate all the time. So you will then be saying, okay, these are the risks associated with my recommendation, and then you are clearly highlighting them as well in your investment thesis. And then what are the mitigants, right? And then your analysis section is by far the largest section, typically where you have a lot of different factors that you are considering, both fundamental and technical drivers of your recommendation. And then under the fundamental, you have the quantitative, and then you have the qualitative factors that you consider in making your recommendation. We'll look at all of these things, in more details as we go on. But essentially, what your analysis section, set out, it brings together different data that you have, or that you've come across in the course of your research, and then how those data informed your decision. What's your analysis? What insight are you bringing out from the data, and how is that data informing eventually your conclusions? Of course, and then you have your conclusions where you put together, just a summary of everything again that you've talked about, and then you have your appendices. Essentially, this is just setting out a good way to think, or a structure to think about when coming up with an equity research report, which can guide how you start your report, how you bring together the different points that you would come across, or your conclusions, or your analysis into your report to inform your recommendation at the end of the day. Okay, so right now we'll go into some of the contents one after the other. Now, executive summary. So content of your executive summary, one is the overall idea in the report. So if you said that, I know the company of interest for this year is company and chemical and allied products company PLC or so. So if you said this company at the end of the day, when you've done your research, is you are giving it a buy recommendation based on different factors that you would have identified in the course of your research. And then you've analysis, your financial analysis, you've done your SWOT analysis, maybe you've done your pest analysis, your portfolio analysis, you've done your valuation, and then I mean, you have your forecast, which also inform your valuation, and you've done all of those things. You've identified the risk, and then maybe the mitigants and whatever it is. In your executive summary, you are bringing out the overall idea of your report. So this is something like saying these are the important things that we've come across in the course of our research, and for this reason, I mean, we've identified that the company has a competitive advantage. I'm just giving an example of what this point is talking about, creating including an overall idea of the report in the executive summary. So based on our analysis, the company has a competitive advantage in the industry. It that it's new by maybe percent on average. Can use that as in years, and then the macro condition right for the company revenue by 10% in the next 10 years. We think that there are no significant risks. The company have risks, and we are recording a bad rate that the company is currently on the value. Here, okay. I don't know if it's just a person, but I'll try
Hello,
to change
Damilare.
I'll try to change my network now.
Okay, maybe you can
I'll change.
also stop your video so that maybe because of the
Oh,
bandwidth.
right.
Yeah, that might help also.
Sometimes these things just act up like this. Okay. I'll quickly change my network as well.
It sounds better now, though.
It sounds better. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just let me know in the next maybe 5 minutes if it's stable. If it's not, then I can change my network.
Okay, sure, we do.
Okay. Thank you very much. Apologies for this, everyone. So I was saying that your executive summary, the first thing what it sets out is the overall idea of the report. What are the key findings that you've come across in the course of your research? That's the first thing that you set out, you put forward in your executive summary, and then you highlight the important data points. So one of the things that you should know is, as an investment analyst, as someone who is writing, as a research analyst, essentially, many a times the data that I will just put numbers just to give, a sense of what I'm trying to talk about now. So the data that you come across sometimes is like, say, 100. Let me just put a number, 100. At the end of the day, what goes into your report might be just 10. So maybe 10% of what you come across. The point is, as a research analyst, it is not everything that you come across that needs to go into your report. And many a times, more often than not, that's what happens. You see, before you find one point, you might have read maybe 3 or 4 different full reports before you find one point that you are looking for. So you have to consider relevance, right? When you are writing your report, what is the relevance of this data to one, the entire report, two, to the target audience? Because that's also one of the things that you want to bear in mind when you are writing your report. You want to you have to consider your audience. Who are you writing this report for? Who is going to consume, in quotes, this your report that you are writing? So it's not everything that you come across that necessarily have to go into that report. So here we are saying under your executive summary, for instance, you highlight key data points. So you have a lot of data, even in the report itself, you would have a lot of data that is included. But in the executive summary, you just include, because remember, it's an abridged version of the entire report. So you are only going to, you only need to highlight the key data points that support your investment recommendation in your executive summary. Then what are your key results? For instance, key results as per maybe you've done a risk assessment, a risk matrix. Some people do, you can do your ESG rating or scorecard. You can do your risk rating, with a risk matrix. You can do your financial analysis as well. You can compare the company with its peers in the market. Some of those key reports that support your your investment findings, you can include them in your executive summary. But again, bear in mind that it is not necessarily that you are not recreating your report entirely. The report is still there. Executive summary is just to give an overview of the entire report. So you just want to touch on the key relevant, results in the executive summary. And then, of course, your conclusions and recommendations. Okay, so these are the key contents of the of your executive summary. And then before I take the best practices, just taking a check that it is still very clear. You can hear me clearly. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, so yes, we can. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Just wanted to quickly check. Okay, so so best practices for an executive summary. The first thing I have there is LIFO, saying some accountants, I believe there might be some accounting students or those who are doing maybe ICANN or ICCA would be familiar with this concept of LIFO, last in, first out. So remember that your executive summary is more or less the first thing your reader is going to interact with. So it is the first thing that is out there for the reader, right? It is it is your way of catching the attention, essentially, of your reader. So you have to approach it as well like that. But it is not the first thing you write. The executive summary can never be the first thing you would write. It is the first thing that will be on your report, quite all right. But in the course of writing your report, it is not the first thing you would write, because what goes into executive summary is a summary of the entire report, which means you must have written the entire report. You know the content of that report, right? And then from the content and the flavor of your report, you then bring out like a tester for your audience, for the reader of the report. So it is the last thing that you write, but it's the first thing that would be there. Which is why I've included this LIFO concept, that it is the um, last thing that you write, but it's the first thing that will be presented to the reader of your report. So you don't want to, definitely your executive summary is the first thing that you have in your report. Then ensure that it is audience friendly, in the sense that if you fail to catch the attention of your reader from the executive summary, then they might be disinterested in the entire report, right? So it is like the first point of call where you try to catch their attention. It's like your hook now, for those that write, it's like your hook that you use to get the attention of the reader, right? So ensure ensure that it is audience friendly, which means you have to understand your audience. Who are the users of the report? I've said that before, and I'll keep emphasizing that because this is one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. You can write a report and then you've used a lot of languages, a lot of technical terms that the reader of your report does not understand. And once it's a way of just putting someone off from reading the entire report. No matter how beautiful the content of the report is, what depth of analysis that has gone into that report, if you fail to catch their attention from your executive summary, then you might have lost them entirely. You might have made them disinterested in the entire report. So ensure that you understand your audience and you tailor your report to your audience. And for the sake of this exercise, which is the CFA Society Nigeria's research report or research challenge, you are writing to investment professionals, right? Those who understand the concepts that some technical concepts, but at the same time, you don't want to overload your report with a lot of technical concepts just to try and impress people. No, that's not the importance. The importance of a research report, and of course, the exercise that you are going through now is something that is also preparing you for the future, outside the university, in the industry. So you want to bear some of these things in mind right from now, so that when you eventually transition into the industry fully, for those who would eventually, you want to bear all of these things in mind, beyond just the immediate purpose of the investment of the CFA Research Challenge. Okay. The next point here says you should keep it simple and brief, right? Your executive summary should, under no circumstance, flow into the second page. I mean, it should be a page. In fact, you should even aim at writing it in 3 paragraphs, at most 4 paragraphs, because it's supposed to just be an overview of the entire report. The content of the report is still there. The full report is still there. So here, what you're just doing is creating an overview, an abridged version of your report. So you should keep it simple and brief. And then it's best to make it flow with the structure of the main report. For instance, when you write your entire report, remember, executive summary is the last thing that you write. So in the content of the main report itself, maybe you start with the introduction of the company, then you go into industry analysis, you go into company analysis, you go into your financial, under the company analysis, definitely you have your financial analysis and all the other analysis that you have there. And then you go into your valuation, you conclude with your recommendation. Essentially, your executive summary should also mirror that structure. It should flow in that sense. You should not come first with maybe company analysis in your executive summary, and then you come later with industry analysis, and then you come later with maybe introduction of the company. You should try and ensure that there's a flow, there's a structure, there's a pattern, and it's best to also make it flow with the structure of the main report. So that's one of the best practices to bear in mind when writing an executive summary, so that at each point in time, the reader of your report would understand what to expect next when they read the entire report. Remember, the executive summary is the first thing that they interact with. So if the executive summary flows with the structure of the entire report, and that flow is beautiful, when they are reading the report itself, from the executive summary, they would have an idea of what to expect next after seeing, a particular section. They know, okay, this is the next thing I should be expecting after this part, and so it makes it also easy for the reader of your report to flow with the content of your report. So essentially, this are the things that you watch out for when writing an executive summary. Okay. Moving on now to of which should be the next part after your executive summary. Here, what you do is you introduce your company, the company of interest. In this instance, CAP PLC, right? So you introduce the company. Some companies have gone through, most times I will just be talking generically, not necessarily about CAP itself, right? But because I also said that beyond the immediate purpose of this exercise, which is the CFA Research Challenge, you also want to take up some of these ideas into the future, not just for the immediate, but definitely our primary focus is the immediate, which is the research challenge. But beyond that, you also want to take up some of these points as knowledge. So some companies have gone through different phases in their evolution. Some companies, in fact, most companies that you see on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Nigerian Exchange Limited, most of them started as a private company. Then later on, they got listed on the exchange, where people can now buy and sell their shares, which is what now, eventually informs somebody monitoring the company, trying to understand the company, try to tell investors when to buy shares of the company, essentially creating a job for research analysts, like the exercise that a lot of us here now are going through, right? So you want to talk about the evolution of the company. So some companies have also gone through different corporate restructuring before. Maybe you have a company that once delisted and relisted, or you have companies that have gone through business combinations such as mergers and acquisition, things like that. Or you have a company that was spun off, whatever it is for the company of interest, you want to talk about its evolution. Where was the company coming from? Has it always been the way it is today, right from when it was established, or has it gone through one or two, phases before to get to where it is today? So essentially you tell us about the company and how it has evolved over time. Then what industry does the company operate in? What are the key operations or the key products of the company, or what services does it render if it's a service rendering company? If it's a company that produces physical goods, manufacturing, what does it manufacture? And essentially what the entire company is about. Then you tell us about the operational model of the company. How does the company operate? There are some companies that are listed that are conglomerates. There are some companies that specialize in a particular, they are just in a particular industry. A conglomerate is a company that has operations in different industries, right? But some companies have operations in a particular industry. Some companies are international. They have international presence. They are not just operational in a particular country. In this instance, in Nigeria, some companies have their main presence in Nigeria, but they also have presence in other geographical locations. So you want to identify some of those things for the company of interest, and then what's the corporate strategy, right? Every company has a strategy as to how they want to create value. You know, um, any company, strategy is like the basic thing for any company to have, because every company is in the business, especially every listed company, publicly listed company, is in the business of making profit. For them to make profit and to generate value for their shareholders, they have a way of operating. They have their, what you call modus operandi, their mode of operation, which in this case we say is their corporate strategy. This is how we want to create value for our clients, for our customers, and for our shareholders, right? So you want to identify some of these things, and there's a way to create this with a business model canvas, right? So a business model canvas essentially shows you interaction between a company and its stakeholders. Stakeholders are different. Shareholders are just a part of stakeholder. So a stakeholder can be the suppliers of the company's raw materials. Maybe it's a product producing company. CAP produces paints, right? I think that's their major product. So they have their suppliers, they get their raw materials from somewhere. How do they operate with their suppliers? How do they operate with their regulators if they have regulators? How do they operate with operate with the government on one side, maybe the tax authority? How do they operate with the environment in terms of where you talk of ESG now? What's their strategy with regards to sustainability, things like that. So you create that business model canvas, and at the end of the day, how do they operate with their shareholders? So that's what a business model canvas tells you. Because one of the things you also want to bear in mind when writing this kind of report that you are embarking on is there are certain things that you can represent graphically. We talk of infographics. It's not just you writing a 30-page report or an 100-page report. Someone can write a 30-page report on a particular subject. Another person writes 100 pages. The one that wrote 30 pages can even have more points than someone that has written 100 pages, because there are some things that you can put in infographics, and it will make a lot of sense to the reader, to the user of the report, and it will be more presentable in that sense, right? So whatever you can represent with charts, with canvas, with matrices, things like that, you should adopt them. So this operational model is something that you can represent with your business model canvas, and where necessary, you can add some notes. Okay, so I've spoken about some of these things before. Any notable historical events, maybe the company has done share repurchase, or they've done a capital raise, mergers and acquisition, which your M and A here. So if they've gone through any business restructuring before, you want to highlight those things in your introduction, especially those events that are material to your recommendation. Maybe they've gone through a share repurchase, and then you are wondering in the future, can they do that again? Or maybe they've done a stock split before. You are wondering in the future, if somebody buys the shares of the company today and the company does a stock split tomorrow, if they've done it before in the past, how does that event, or how would that event affect, your recommendation? If you know that they will do stock split for sure in 6 months time, for instance, are you still likely to recommend a buy recommendation, or a sell recommendation, or a hold recommendation, whatever the case is? So whatever event is material to your recommendation, you want to clearly highlight such events. And then, of course, in your introduction, you also then give an hint as to the why are you writing the report. You clearly identify the reason, the purpose of the report that you are writing. Okay. The next thing, please, if you have any question at any point in time, please just and I think that's been mentioned as well by the coordinator, by Chair Marker. So please just feel free to raise your hand, or unmute your mic, so that we can go on with that. Okay. So how do you write an investment thesis? And I think this is where this is one of the two places where you spend a lot of time, or you have a lot of thinking to do. Your investment thesis, and then your analysis is the second one. So this is the first one. Essentially, what's an investment thesis? It is a well-reasoned argument. It is you saying, this company, I'm rating it a buy, for instance, right? And then I'm saying, these are the reasons, these are the factors that are informing my recommendation. To say, I've done my analysis, this is what I found out, this is my argument. If somebody comes and says that, no, this company is not a buy, it should be a sell, you that you're recommending a buy, it's like you being in an argument now to say, no, this is what I'm considering. Of course, what is interesting in this market, in this field, of investment research is that two people can write a, a report on the same company and they have different recommendations. In fact, two analysts in the same company can have different views of the same company, about the same company. I mean, two analysts in the same research house can have an opposing view in about a particular company, or they get pricing and they get different prices, and then they have maybe have different recommendations. It's very possible. What is important is that you, as the analyst, you have a well thought out argument. You have reasons that back up your recommendation. You have clear, clearly identified points that support your argument or your recommendation. So, which is where your investment thesis come in. So, it is a well thought out, a well reasoned argument or analysis that outlines the rationale behind a particular investment strategy. Now, in this case, I said before that some people have what they call overweight, underweight, but we talked about buy, sell, hold. So if you say buy this company, why are you saying so? That is where you invest. That's why, I mean, that's where you talk about investment thesis. What is informing that your recommendation, right? So it serves as a foundation for making investment decisions by providing a clear and logical framework for why an investment opportunity is attractive. Okay. So it is the point of you saying, yes, we've considered X, Y, Z, and based on these factors, our recommendation is that you should buy this company. Maybe some of the things you might have considered, to give very precise examples, is you found out that the company has a cost advantage in the industry. There are some companies like that in Nigeria. I'm not giving anything out now because this is a challenge in itself, right? It's a research challenge that different schools are participating in, and you are doing your own research by yourself, and you are trying to come up with different views on the same company, right? So you, as an analyst, from your research, you might have found out that the company that you are researching has a cost advantage in the industry, or maybe the company has carved out a niche of the market such that that niche of the market would always patronize me. There are some companies that produce, or for instance, the in the agriculture sector, there are companies that they are by other companies. They are not directly consumed by the final consumer. So if that, let's say company A serves other companies Y, if company Y will always be in business, it means that company A will most likely also always be in business because it has a ready market. But if there's any risk to company X, Z, that X and Y, that company A, sells products too, then if those companies X and Y, if anything is to happen to them that will make it fall, it means that company A sells products to them also be, affected because they don't have a market to sell to, unless that and changes its business strategy, operation, uh, you know, that- so which is why it is important to understand the company that you're talking about in its entirety. Who are its customers? Who are its uh, um, same upwards, it goes downwards. Upwards in company to from company A to XY, company X, the of A companies um, uh, and Q, who are suppliers to company A. If anything happens to companies P and supply company A, and companies P and Q happen to hold up tomorrow, is it like I'm seeing a message? My network is unstable. Okay, let me just change it. I'm switching to another network.
Sorry, hi, Damilola, we can't seem to hear you. I don't know if this is a problem that just me is experiencing, but you are totally, um, we can't hear anything.
Okay, hi Damilare. Can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes. We lost you for a while.
I don't even understand what's going on today. This whole thing is very strange.
Yeah, but we can hear you now though, so you can
Oh,
just continue. Sorry.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about all this.
no problem.
Okay. I don't know at what point you couldn't hear me anymore, but I'll just try and recap what I've said and then move on. So on this screen, on this particular slide, what I've been saying is that your investment thesis should clearly identify why you have recommended, why you've made your recommendation, why your recommendation is buy or sell, based on the findings, the key findings of your report. I mean of your research. And I'm going to show you an example of um, an investment thesis very shortly. Okay, so the next thing you want to clearly identify is that your investment thesis should assess all possible risks. I talked about that it should be clear and concise. It doesn't have to be voluminous. It should just clearly articulate your points, and then you assess all possible risks to the investment. So especially in Nigeria, well, generally in any report, in any climate, in any investment climate, you have different risks. You have political risk, you have legal risks, You have environmental risk for some companies, depending on the kind of operations that they, that they embark on or that they do, their primary line of business. You can have environmental risks. You can have what else now? You can have different, all sorts of risks, and you should clearly identify them and talk about how significant those risks are to the company, right? Some companies are highly, in fact, you also have regulatory risk, right? Some companies are highly susceptible to regulatory risks. And maybe the first sector that will come to mind is the banking sector. When you look at the banking sector, there are a lot of regulations that come up every now and then that affect the banking sector. You have the CBN, which is the primary regulator of that industry. So you want to check your company and see who are the regulators, how do they regulate that company, how often do policies come out that affect that company. Things like that are the things you want to bear in mind when you are looking at the risk. And then you can create what you call a risk matrix to do your risk. Okay, so you can create a risk matrix that identifies the risk and then talks about it clearly just highlights how significant, what the level of significance of those risks are. Some risks are high, some risks are minimal, right? In terms of how they affect the company that you are analyzing. So you can check up what a risk matrix is and see how you can integrate it into your report. Remember, I said earlier that one of the things that make your reports enticing to read is the use of graphics, the use of infographics, things that you can represent graphically or with charts, with matrices. Please use them. They beautify your report. Of course, you have to also format them properly. That's also one of the things that you want to bear in mind, right? So you can identify all possible risks and their potential, the level of them affecting that company with a risk matrix. Then how do you then mitigate those risks, right? So some risks can be avoided, some can be reduced, or what you are talking about here is, these risks that I've identified, how significant are they to the company? Some are not very significant, some are very minimal, but some are very, very high, So those ones that are high, for instance, how likely are they to come up? How likely are they to crystallize when if you invest in the company? And then if they do, how can you mitigate them? So you identify some of these things. Then again, the why of your recommendation. Remember, you would have introduced this as well in your introduction. But here you are doing more of I've said I've said that the foundation of my report, I mean the overall idea of my report is that you should buy the shares of this company. This is why these are my supporting points. These are the logic behind my recommendation, right? What are the internal things to the company? For instance, the mode of operation, their maybe they have operational efficiency, or maybe they're a cost-effective company, so that even if inflation is biting in the economy, it is less likely to affect that company. Of course, it's affect everybody, but the level of exposure of such a company, for instance, of that company to inflation is very minimal. I mean, I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying this is the case for the company you are analyzing. So I'm saying these are the things that you want to consider when you are analyzing your reports, right? When you're writing your report, what are the external factors as well that either that supports your recommendation, that supports your buy recommendation, or that can be a clog in the wheel of your of getting a gain in by investing in that company. So these are the why, the reasons, the logic behind your investment recommendation. What are the fundamental drivers? What are the technical drivers? Fundamental drivers can be, the technical things where you talk about the P/E ratio of the company, maybe relative to the industry,
For some of you, you'll just be exposed to some of these concepts for the first time based on this report that you are going to write or this research you are participating in. For some people, they might have heard of these things before, but there are things that everybody can read up on. And I'm sure there are other sessions where some of these technical concepts will be discussed in more detail. But what we are just doing here is to talk about the entire report itself and how to write an investment research report. So you look at the fundamental drivers and technical, drivers that support your investment recommendation. I hope that you can still hear me clearly. Yeah. So then integrating analysis into the reports, which is, I think this is where we'll spend most of our time right now. I can see messages coming in. Okay, yes, we can. Okay, thank you for confirming that you can still hear me. Right. So your analysis, this is where we spend most of our time, and definitely this is also by far the largest part of your report. Investments. Okay, before I do that, I said I wanted to show you an example of an investment thesis. So let me quickly show you one. Please confirm, can you see a document or is it still the Zoom? I mean, is it still the slide you're seeing? Okay, my screen sharing is paused. I think I
We
need
can
to.
still see the writing and investment thesis.
Oh, okay.
The slide. We cannot see what you're trying to present now.
Okay, let me reach my screen so I can show you. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I believe you can see another document now.
Yes, we
Okay.
can now.
So you can see this. This is an investment thesis, for instance, and in the slides, I'm going to, or I've already included a link to this document as well. I believe the organizers will share the slides with us, so you would have access to whatever resource that I'm sharing now. Okay, so a sample buy case investment thesis for Apple may look something like this. So 4 bullet points. Apple's one is on brand, right? Apple's strong brand will enable the company to sell their products at premium prices. So, this is saying we've identified the company, even though they have different competitors in the industry, they have a strong, more or less like saying strong brand loyalty, right? This is one of the whys, when we say the why, identify the why, the logic, the reason. What are the supporting, drivers of your reports, right? So this first point is saying based on brand loyalty, right? They can still sell at premium prices. Everybody knows that Apple sells at a premium price, but people continue to buy. Why? It's because of the brand, and people will continue to buy Apple. That's the truth, right? The second one is saying Apple's ecosystem of interconnected apps, videos, and music fuels a loyal and sticky user base. This is still saying brand loyalty because you can do a lot of things. It's like you having a device, and then that device can give you multiple things at the same time. So if I have an Apple, I don't need to buy maybe a video player separately, or maybe a music player separately, or stuff like that. You have Apple Pay, Apple Music. You have all of those things embedded in the Apple device. So they've created an ecosystem where they have almost everything that their users will need is within that ecosystem. So it makes it easy for their users to just, have access to a lot of things at the same time. So that will fuel brand loyalty, right? And then another one is saying smartphones and tablets are in their early stages of adoption globally, offering significant growth potential. This is like forward looking. we've looked at the past, we've looked at the present ecosystem. Now, will they continue to enjoy these things in the future? Will the company continue to, enjoy patronage from its customers in the future? This investment thesis is saying yes. It's saying the product that they produce are still in their early stages of global adoption, which means you will still have, a maturity stage. You still have some stages to come, right? So if it's in the early stage, you still have, a lot of room for growth in the future. That is another point here. Then lastly, it says Apple's management promotes a culture of innovation. Remember, I said internal factors, external factors. Management is an internal factor now. Company's culture, the one we looked at before, growth, or brand loyalty, those are external, the customers. Now you are looking at the internal, the culture, the management. The management promotes a culture of innovation and design for consumer electronics, creating a platform for future product launches, which means, ideas are welcome in the company. We've seen that ideas are welcome in the company. So those who work with the company can bring up another idea about, oh, why not let's make this other kind of device that can do so things that customers would like, and management welcomes those kind of things. So they can also have other products that they are going to launch in the future. You see, so you are looking at factors that support your recommendation. Now, you don't have to have only sell, only buy recommendation. It says a sell investment thesis for Apple may look like this. Apple competes in the highly competitive industries of PC and smartphones. This is saying, if I'm going to recommend a sale, what are the things I'm going to look at? In short, it's not like you recommending a sale alone. Whatever you want to recommend, whatever your recommendation is, there have to be supporting points, right? So a sale recommendation would have this kind of supporting points. They operate in a highly competitive industry. History has proven that commoditization of for consumer electronics industry is inevitable, which makes Apple's premium prices unsustainable. The company produces products that command premium prices. Can they continue to command premium prices? This recommendation is saying no. That's if you have a sell recommendation, a sell investment thesis. Essentially, what you are doing here is you are identifying points that support whatever your recommendation is. Whether you've recommended a buy, there have to be supporting points. If you've recommended a sell, there have to be supporting points, right? So this document will be shared, or a link to this document will be shared as well. I just wanted to show you this just to buttress what we've been talking about under investment thesis, that you identify. It is very clear. You can see that these points are direct. It's not voluminous. They are direct, and anybody can read these things and understand, the point of view. Right. So that is what your investment thesis should be about, and you should bear those things in mind when you're writing an investment thesis. Okay, I'm going back to the screen now so that we can move on to the analysis part. Okay, so yeah, I believe you can see the slides back now. So integrating reports. Okay, great. So by far, I said earlier that this is most likely going to be your largest, where you do the bulk of the work, because at the end of the day, when you see a one-page report, investment report, or two-page reports, a lot of analysis have gone into those reports. But not everything will make it into what you give to the user of the report, right? So what are the key things that you want to identify, even if your report is just 2 pages or 3 pages, or whatever it is? These are important things to do, especially for the purpose of this research challenge, where you need to do a lot of analysis to show the depth that you've gone through to make your recommendation. Hi, Daimler, just let. Oh yeah. I bear that in mind. The timing. Thank you. Yeah. So I'll try to run through this, because again, I believe that many of these things will still be handled individually in different sessions. but just to highlight them, relevant macroeconomic trends. No economy, I mean, there's a popular saying in the investment climate that no economy can grow beyond no company rather can grow beyond the economy, can outgrow the economy as far as it operates within that economy, right? So the point here is there are always macroeconomic factors that affect the company, that affect a company. So you want to identify those macro factors or macro trends that are relevant to the company that you are analyzing. Things like inflation, things like GDP. But when you're talking about GDP here, you're talking about the GDP of of that sector, of that particular sector where the company operates in. Those kind of things. If the company exports its products, you would be interested in exchange rates, right? If the company also imports some raw materials, you would also be interested in exchange rates. How does exchange rate affect the company? For instance, just earlier this year, when the new administration came in, and they removed essentially they deregulated the foreign exchange markets, and you had exchange rates spike. A lot of companies, especially in the consumer goods sector, recorded huge losses. In fact, many of them had negative balance in their equity because of revaluation losses, right? So those kind of things are what you want to pay attention to. What are the macroeconomic policies or what are the macroeconomic trends that affect the company? Then industry analysis. In the industry analysis, you want to identify the level of competition in that industry, and how well placed is the company of interest in that industry. So the company you're analyzing, how well placed are they? How competitive are they in that industry? In short, what is the um, market structure? What's the structure of that industry? Is it an oligopolistic market? Is it a market with monopolistic competition, or perfect competition, or is the company operating as a monopolist? That kind of thing. So you want to identify the level of competition in that industry, and then you identify how well placed that company is, what competitive advantage, if any, does the company have in that industry. And of course, you would want to do a value chain analysis where you identify how the company makes money. How does it make money in terms of what does it produce? Where does it get its raw materials? How does it transform the raw materials into finished products? That's like your value chain. And then when it has that finished product, how does it get them to the final consumer? So how does a company essentially generate value? It is in the process of getting raw materials, converting them to finished product, and then getting the finished product to the market, to the final user, that the company gets money or creates value. So you want to clearly identify the value chain, so that in between that value chain, you can see if there are any risks to the company, like the instance I gave earlier about company A and X and Y, and company A and companies P and Q, whether it is the company that's its suppliers, or it's the users of its own product, its customers, things like that. You want to identify in what part of the value chain is there intense competition, in what part of the value chain is the company highly exposed to risks, and what kind of risks, in what part of the value chain is the company well placed to compete, favorably. Those kind of things, you can do them when you do a thorough value chain analysis, right? Then you have your SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are the strengths of the company that you're analyzing? What are its weaknesses? What are the opportunities that are there for the company in the market, in the industry? Maybe a company that produces for babies. I mean, it produces babies products. I'm just giving a general example now, right? And then you're looking at the population growth rates. How often do people give birth to babies? If you look at some countries, like I think in North Korea, there was a news recently, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, that the president was even, the supreme leader, as they call him, was even crying on her about, pleading with women to give birth to more children because they had a birth control thing in place at some point, and now it's still their population growth rate is dwindling a lot. Their population is dwindling. So if you are looking at a company that produces products for babies, and you are saying that women are not so giving birth, I mean, families generally are not are conservative about how many children they give birth to, you can know that there is risk the to the purchase of the company's products in the future, that kind of thing. So that's, you would know from the opportunities that are there for the company, and then what are the threats, and then you can do a pest analysis where you identify the political factors that affect the company, the economic factors, social factors, technological factors or changes. Some people also had L and E. L stands for legal factors, and E, the other E stands for environmental factors, right? So you identify those things and how they affect the company. And from there also you can begin to think of risks. What are the, where do risks lie in all of these factors? Are there political risks, or where are there advantages as well? Are there political advantages? Are there economic risk or advantages? Are there social risk or social advantages? Things like that. They put as 5 forces. These are many of these things I've mentioned are things that you can identify with just infographics and just maybe a short note under them if where necessary, right? They are not necessarily things that you have to write voluminous things for. So you put as 5 forces. You have your bargaining powers of customers, bargaining powers of suppliers. You identify those forces, and what is the how well does the company do in terms of these forces? How how in which of these forces is the company facing any risk? In which of the forces is the company in a way advantaged? So that you are also in a sense identifying the risks and opportunities in all of these factors. And then you do your financial analysis, which by far many people are interested in. Under this whole thing, you can also, okay, it's on the other part of the slide, so I'm going to talk about that. So your financial analysis, you talk about your financial trend, your trend, your historical analysis, and then you do your ratios that are relevant to the company that you are analyzing. You do your forecast as well. Where do you see, so if revenue has been growing, say, by 10% on the average in the last maybe 5 years, is it likely to continue like that? What are the factors that you are seeing? Because one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, just to say that as well here, is that they fail to understand that your report is a mix of, there's a storytelling part of it, and then your numbers have to reflect those stories. So it's a mix of numbers and stories, in which case the numbers have to reflect your story. For instance, you can't be saying that a company is the suppliers or the final users of the company's products are reducing, or they are sourcing their products from other companies, and the company has grown by say 10% in the past, and you are now projecting a 15% growth in revenue in the future, whereas you are saying that their growth is likely to dwindle or to reduce because there is intense competition now in the industry. If there's intense competition, unless you've also clearly identified that the company has something that it is doing that other competitors are not doing right, the company is doing right, but the other competitors are not doing right. Unless you clearly identify that, you cannot be saying that there is intense competition and then you are still projecting maybe a higher growth rate in revenue. That kind of thing. There has to be a sync between your story and your numbers, right? So your forecast has to reflect what you are expecting. If you are saying you expect inflation, for instance, to bite harder, and then you are projecting a lower costs for the company, there's no sync. If you are saying if a company is highly exposed to inflation for whatever reason, or maybe exchange rate, and you are saying exchange rate is going to worsen in the nearest future, but in your costs, that is not reflected in your costs, then there's no sync, right? So whatever you are forecasting, there has to be a sync between the story behind that your forecast and what your numbers are reflecting. So you have to bear that in mind so that you are not looking at just the past as a direct reflection of the future. The past is there, yes, it can tell us what is likely to happen in the future, but more than the past, what are we seeing? What are the drivers of the revenue? What are the drivers of the costs? And those things have to be reflected in your forecast. So essentially, you do your financial analysis, and then there are some qualitative parts of your reports as well of your analysis, which are on the second half of the screen. So you have non-financial items like your ESG score or rating. I mean, I'm sure you've done, or you've done, or you'll do, a separate discussion on ESG. But those are some of the things that you also want to. That's one of the things you want to clearly identify in your report. Then the company's management. Sometimes you can integrate it into the report, in the body of the report, or sometimes, if you wish, depending on how you want your report to flow, you can include the management in the appendix section. And what is relevant here is not just telling us about the management. Anybody can Google the management and see who they are. But you are trying to tell us why those managements, why why they support your buy recommendation or your sell recommendation. For instance, maybe they have the technical know-how. You think they have the technical know-how to drive that company. They have the expertise to make the right decisions for the company. They promote a good culture in the company, like the example of Apple that I showed you earlier in that investment thesis, right? Or if it's otherwise, maybe you think the company's management, they are people that they are not supposed to be in the helm of affairs of that company. You don't trust them to lead that company aright, that kind of thing. So you would be saying, oh, the management is not a good fit for that company because you don't think they have the right expertise. That would then mean you are saying that you are not supporting investing in that company because of the management. Whatever the case is, whatever you are highlighting has to reflect your recommendation. Then share ownership and price movement, share price movement. Because share ownership can also tell you a lot about the company. If you have an international company that is backing a company, right? A company is operating in Nigeria, but 60% of their shareholding is held by another company, maybe in the US or in the UK. You can deduce some things from that. How long has that international company been holding shares of that company? Are they likely to sell off because of exchange rates issues? And if they sell off, what impact will that have on the share price? If somebody is having 60% of shareholdings of a company and they dump just 10% in a short period of time, that will lead to a significant sell-off of the company's, a significant drop in the company's share price, right? So that can also tell you something about what to expect or what you can expect. Why would they do that? Do they have any motivation to sell off their shareholdings? When are they likely to? What is likely to inform that decision? Those kind of things can also tell you. Then you can look at price movements in the past, maybe 5 years, 10 years. What has driven the price movement so far? What are those factors? What is likely to happen in the nearest future? And how does that affect your investment recommendation? Okay, and then of course your valuation, where you use your different. I'm sure you would also have a separate, um, time to discuss valuation. But here we are just saying, your valuation is more or less the end of your analysis, where you've done your forecast, and then adopt different valuation methods to come up with an investment recommendation with scenarios and sensitivity analysis. I'll try to wrap up in the next, maybe within the next, 5 minutes or so. And then we can take some questions. Okay, so then your appendix, right? Some things that you should bear in mind here. You would essentially have your tables, your charts, your financial analysis part, for instance. You would have just spoken about maybe the ratios. Maybe you've included some charts as well. I mean, there's no one cap fits all rule to doing how you should present your financial analysis, but whatever method you've adopted, um, whatever you think is relevant to the report that you've not included in the main body of the report, then your appendix is the best. I mean, is a place where you can include them. Maybe you just want to keep your report short, just with some bullet point and all, and then your appendix you include all your tables, or you can include some of the charts in the body of the report. Whatever the case is, here just ensure that you have aesthetically pleasing tables and charts, because they can also add to your point and making your reports interesting to the reader. And then your value chain, you can also include a graphical representation of your value chain in your appendix. Your key financial schedules. So when you are doing your financial projections, you might have created some schedules, maybe revenue schedule, maybe debt schedule. Maybe the company has huge debt, or depending on what your forecast is. So you create some of those schedules, your PPE, if where necessary. It's not in all cases that is necessary, but whatever you think is necessary in your financial schedules, you keep them, you can put them in your appendix. And then your glossary of terms. You might have used some terms that are peculiar to the industry, or some abbreviations or acronyms, or whatever the case is. You can have your glossary of terms as part of your extra points in your appendix. Then management highlights, that's if you've not included it in the analysis part. Then just talking about some other general tips, revision and peer review. Now, you can't just write the report. The first time you've written the report, you just submit it like that. That's not the best way to do this kind of thing, right? To go through this kind of exercise. Sometimes you've written the report, then you begin to question some of the things that you've written, not because you are doubting yourself, but just to say, okay, if somebody picks this report, what are the loopholes that they will be looking out for? So you can ask your peers, you can do it yourself, ask your peers as well. Look at this report. What do you think is not yet included that but is necessary? That's something that is very, very good, or it's a good practice to adopt when you are writing an investment research report. Most times, for someone like me as well, when we write reports, equity research reports, within ourselves as analysts, we share our reports amongst ourselves and first read and say, okay, what do you think is needed in this report that is not clearly highlighted, or what could be structured better? Maybe I've written a sentence and somebody else is saying the sentence and saying, oh, the point you are trying to communicate here is not clear enough. Can you restructure this sentence? That kind of thing, right? So you also want to pay attention to your charts and tables formatting. These are little things, but they matter a lot. They can matter a lot, right? So if you have different charts and they have different formatting, they have different maybe font color, font size, different font type. They are little things that can either make someone interested, or that can make someone lose interest in a report. Consistency, okay, that's what I've just mentioned with your font type and color, and then your information sourcing. You have to be careful with where you source your information, so that you have points that you can clearly back up. You don't want to go and present your report and someone is asking you, where did you get your maybe your equity risk premium, for instance, and you say you got it from Google. I mean, Google from where? There has to be a good source. It's not just random Google or something like that. I just gave that as an example, right? So every bit of information that you have in your report, that you've included in your report, you should have a good source that you can defend as to where you've gotten that information. Okay, so this is a slide to. I'll go back to the I'm essentially done now. I would go back to the document I was showing, and I'll show you another document just to address some of these points. Then we take some questions. Where is it? Okay. So this is a report from JP Morgan, for instance. And in the US, most times the language there is overweight, underweight, that kind of thing. It's similar to our own buy sell, but this is how they put theirs. And then you can see here they've given you like an header that gives a brief hint about what they are trying to talk about in the report about the company, right? So you have some of the things that we've mentioned, a sort of overview of the report and about the company, and then you have some supporting points for the investment thesis, right? Here they've included the share price movements on the right hand of the document, and you have this table that highlights some of the investments, I mean some of the financial ratios that you know they've come up with for this company. And then before they go into the main part of the reports. So this is like your executive summary and investment thesis, and then they go into the depth of the reports to talk about the company, um, strategic changes. Remember, I was talking about if there's any historical event that has happened to the company or they've made some changes in the past, that are relevant to your report. You want to clearly highlight them as well. And then these are just some of the deals that the company has, and then the product lines. Okay, so then you have your this is more or less like this is how they spend on adverts, just to show what's their way to the market, how are they capturing value in the market. They advertise, where is the bulk of their adverts, and that can also tell you their target audience, because if the bulk of your adverts is on radio, for instance, in Nigeria, you know the segment that uses radio, the segment that is exposed to maybe billboards, the segment of the population that is exposed to television, those kind of things, can also give you an idea of what the company is doing. But essentially, you would have access to this document, and then they can just be things that can also give you more idea about what we are talking about. And then, yeah, I think that's it from me. Then we can take questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much, Damilare. I can't, please, if you have any questions, you can either drop them in the chat box or you can raise your hand to speak if you prefer to speak. I cannot see any question yet. But I mean, while we wait for the question, if there'll be any question, I just want to ask, Damilare, in your own experience, what font type would you say is the better or best font type for presentation?
Okay, for the report, well, there's no best. So even for me, at some points, generally, you'd see the most common font type that you see is Calibri body, which is in any case, the default that you see when you open a new Word document, right? Calibri body is what you see. And for most research reports that you see, that's the most that people use. And I think on its own, it's beautiful enough because it is legible, everybody can read it and all of that. But I've also experimented with other font types before, especially for certain kinds of reports. So there are some reports that when I was when I was still, how do I put this now? So, um, where I was working, so at some point we tried to create some kinds of other reports that are not just instead of writing, because what we discovered is a lot of people are tired of reading, or people don't have time to really sit down and read even a two-page report. And then what we did was to transition some of our reports to PowerPoint. And then in PowerPoint, we are just giving you graphical, just one page. You'll see everything that we want to tell you in graphics, right? And in PowerPoint, I prefer to use other font types other than Calibri. Something like Avinia. Avinia, I find it very beautiful to use. Something like Garamond as well. Garamond, I find it beautiful to use as well. So, but I think just to be on the safe side, Calibri body is just good for when you're writing a report. I think that's um like a default.
Okay, thank you very much for answering that.
Yeah.
I cannot see any other question on the chat box. So I guess you really explained it very well. Okay, somebody's asking, what about
New
New
Times
Times Roman?
Roman. Yeah, it's also fine. I mean, personally, I used to use it as well, but I mean, just personally, I don't like it as much as other ones. It's also fine, no doubt, but these are just subjective things, right? It is what you like. Some another person might not like it, or another person might prefer something else. But just from a personal point of view, I would prefer other things to New Times Roman, but it's also fine in its own right. But just to be on the safe side, like I said, you might just use Calibri body. That one is like a universal language.
Okay, thank you once again.
Yeah, sure.
Since if there are no more questions, I guess this particular session, okay, I can see a comment. Can an analyst make choice of the font style to use? Damla, do you want to answer that? I was going to say something, but yes, please go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I would say is on a general. So when you say an analyst, so I'm thinking this is outside of this research report that you're doing for CFA. If it's for CFA now, this research challenge, there might be, I believe there would be like guiding principles or what do you call them now? Like to say these are the things that you should requirements, right? So if there are those things, just follow them. But if you are talking about outside of this, competition in quotes, right? You are working in a particular company. Companies also have their requirements. Some companies tell you this is the kind of font that we use in our company, and you will see that actually happen a lot, right? Companies have their own, but if you don't have those kind of things, I think it's fine. You can choose what works for you, but of course you have to have your reader in mind as well when you are choosing font color or font type or stuff like that, because you want to also bring things, use things that are user friendly. You don't want to use it because, oh, you think it is beautiful. What about your reader? Have you considered your reader? Stuff like that. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you very much. Yeah, there are no more questions. Somebody says, yeah, I think I get your point. So this brings us to an end for this session. We have another session at exactly 4 p.m. So if you want to remain in the room, you can remain. If you want to step out and come back in, but we will be here for the next session that is going to start in less than 10 minutes, 9 minutes to be very precise. So yeah, we'll be here waiting for you to either come back. It depends on you. So thank you once again, Damilare.
Okay, thank you very much. I would exit the corner. Apologies again for the disruption.
No problem. We really
Sorry, really
stopped.
strange things.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. I wish you the best.
Hello, everybody. Please confirm that you can hear me. Hello, can anybody hear me?
Hi, Chiamaka, I can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. So the next session will start in about 2 minutes. So you can just you can inform your friends to join. We're about to start very shortly. Hello, Laide Ladipo.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. You're very much welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope you're very ready for us. I hope you're prepared for us.
Should be. Great to be here. Great to meet everyone.
All right, thank you. So we're going to start now. Just to give a brief introduction of who Olaide Ladipo is. And if I'm wrong at any point, if there's something else you want to add to your introduction, please feel free to. Olaide Ladipo is a graduate from the University of Obafemi Awolowo. She's a graduate from OAU. She has a degree in management and accounting. And currently, she works in McKinsey and Company as a consultant. What Olaide will be doing for us here today is to take us through storytelling in investments, which is a crucial, very crucial, highly crucial part of, this activity or this competition. So whatever you do, you have to make sure that you have. Olaide is going to tell us or put us through storytelling in a way that at the end you're able to communicate what the analysis you've done, the valuation forecasting you've done. So Olaide, over to you.
Thanks, Chiamaka. Great to be here. And this is going to be an interactive session, please, as much as possible. So I would be calling on folks somewhere along the line, and then there'll be some exercises as we go along, just so we're able to quickly just demonstrate some of the things that we're learning. In terms of my bio, I used to work at McKinsey, but I'm no longer at McKinsey. But yeah, thanks for the readout. It's great to be here. I think not so long ago, I was in this position. I also participated in the research challenge a couple of years ago. It was definitely a great experience. I learned so much in such a short while, and so I'm happy to be here. And I'm guessing from interaction or participation in the program so far, you've sort of, you can see, like, you know, the improvements you've recorded in such a short while, and the amount of learning that happens to you over the 4 to 5 months where you're participating in the program. And so if you just give me a sense of what the timeline is like. So are you currently at the report writing phase? Are you done writing? Are you preparing for presentation? I'd just like to know, like, what's happening over the next couple of months. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you take that again?
Yeah, no, I was just saying I wanted to get a sense of where folks are at in the program. So is this the report writing phase? Are they done writing, or is this like preparing for presentation? Because I know, like, when it's close to December, I mean, based on at least when I did the program, I would just like to know what the plan is like.
Okay, so what we've been doing so far is to put together sessions to help candidates, put together a better presentation. Or yes, so right now what they're doing, like what somebody just put in the chat, is that they're preparing for the presentation. So all of the sessions that we're having or we've had so far is to help them put into perspective some of the things that is expected of them. I hope that
Yeah, no,
clarifies.
I get that. So what I was asking is, if they have submitted their report, at least to write in the broader report, the 20-page report, or the 10, is it 10 or 20 pages now? I can't remember. Or they've submitted the report and this is just presentation.
This is presentation.
Oh, this is presentation.
Yes.
So, okay. Preparation of the report, exactly. Okay, so please feel free to unmute. Like I said, this is a very interactive session, just so we can. Okay, I see Onyeke Emmanuel saying
Oh,
we're
my
still
bad.
in the
They're
report.
still in the report. My bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's completely fine.
Yeah.
It's completely fine. I just wanted to know so that it's easier for us to, just work on this and do things the right way. Okay, that's fine. So, okay. Would be good to get a sense from the chat, like the percentage of, like, I don't know, 400 / 300 or 200 level students on the call. So I know, just if I could keep things like pretty high level, I need to like distill a bit further. So please, like, just put in the chat like your part. You don't have to say your school if you don't want to. Just say like 400 level, 200, 100 or something, just so I'm able to better tailor the session. I think just one person has responded. Do we have just one person on the call?
Recording in progress.
Sorry.
It's more than one person responded. Most people from the responses so far, 400 level, 300 level banking and finance, but most of them so far 400 level economics.
Okay. No, that's helpful. So let's get right into it. Today we have 2 hours to talk about storytelling, and I think, like Chemaka mentioned, I graduated, from accounting a couple of years ago, and so some of the things that I will be taking you through today are things that I've literally experienced firsthand, and I'm hoping that from this, chat, we can just better understand what and how to sort of do certain things. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen in a minute. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. And I think okay, fantastic. Just trying to set my camera, just so folks can see me. Okay, yeah. So we're going to talk about storytelling today, and I have 3 broad things I want to try and sort of achieve today. One is like, why do you need to tell a story? Second is like, how do you then tell a story? And then the last one is like, we just look at samples of things that I've done in the past, or things that, some of the folks that you probably will be competing with in this competition are looking at, or some of the outputs that they sort of put out. And then we'll just sort of go through briefly how the logic and how like the story kind of follows. And then we'll have like a little class exercise, which is why I was saying, it's going to be very interactive. And, I hope to see some of the things that we're speaking about sort of come up during this class exercise. Okay. So why do you need to storytell? The first thing is because of the sector or the area that you're working, the kind of work that you're doing, right? So as an investment analyst or financial analyst, you do a lot of numbers, and people that are not number centric, for one, might just feel lost. Second is you are also presenting to people who typically have a lot on their plate. Like they're pretty busy, you don't have time to work, to read like hundreds of pages of documents. And so for them, like they're like, okay, so what is the so what of what you're trying to tell me? Yes, revenue grew by 5%. Okay. It could have been a one-off. It could be, oh, okay, it was just, for example, an exchange rate valuation, devaluation or revaluation that increased that revenue. It could also be that, okay, you got a nice government contract that helped to bolster revenue in that year. And so a lot of times people want to know, one, they want to be able to understand. I think, let me take that again. I think for 3 reasons, you need to storyline and tell your story. One, because your audience is broad and there are folks that will probably not have the same level of experience or the same level of context as you do. 2 is the fact that people that you want to read this, who would typically be investors, which you are currently pitching to either buy, sell, or drop or hold rather, a stock. They need to know like this information like yesterday, and they need to get to the answer immediately rather than, taking them through a journey. And then at the end of the day, they're wondering, okay, so what does this really tell me? And then 3 is the fact that, there are so many ways to get to an answer, in the sense that if you're trying to do one thing, or if you're trying to say one thing, that outcome can be the result of either a one-off item, or it could just be like, okay, there are several things that are driving that result that you get, right? And so like those are some of the reasons why, there's a need to actually tell a story and take people on a journey. And so I posted here just sort of an excerpt of some of the conversations that some like top, finance people. This is a CFO of a big company, and he was talking about how it's really hard to hold people's attention when there's nothing interesting to say. So if you write a report that is 20 pages long, I know it's like 10 for the main report, and then there's like appendix of like 10 to 20. And one of the things he was saying is that, it's hard to win and hold someone's attention in the conversation when you don't have anything interesting to say. Because outside of saying, oh, I think you should buy, why should you buy? Because, I don't know, the stock price is going to increase by 50% over the next year. Well, okay, what do I do with that, right? And so for a financial analyst or investment analyst, but in the case of this person was a CFO, it means going beyond pure financial data. And because that is, you need to get business leaders, investors to drive change, and you need to be able to link data in a compelling manner to drive a story that will command your attention. And that was the key thing for me here. And so when you think about writing your reports, I need you to begin to think about it as, having a link of data from different sources. You find out that, okay, for example, their revenue increased. Well, revenue increase, what does that mean? Does it trickle down to profitability, or did they make investments in equipment that would ensure further profitability for the next 5 years, right? And so in the interim, it looks like net profit is a bit low. It's not growing at the same rate as revenue is growing, but because they're making investments in the future, that tells, the investor, the business leader that, okay, one, this company is on the right track. They are doing great right now, and they're also investing in the future. And so you have nothing to worry about, because again, equity, like we all know, is a long game, and it's not only about the now, right? So, just from what I've explained about, revenues increasing, like you can draw like multiple data points and string them together to tell a more compelling story. And it could also be that, okay, revenue is growing, but profitability is even growing even at a higher rate. And that is because, while they are growing their revenue, they're also cutting down costs. They're enjoying, I don't know, maybe cost of, what's that word now? Economics of scale. Yeah. And so maybe they were able to increase their bargaining power with the supplier. And so the direct costs has gone down, or they got cheaper labor. There's a lot of talk about AI now. So it's like, okay, they swapped out, I don't know, half or 50% of their factory, and they've made that, they've deployed automation in that service. And so now it's a case of they only pay 10K per month. In the past, they had paid 10K to 10 different people, and now they're just paying just one 10K. And so for that reason, like you can see that there's a higher profitability. It could also be that, okay, while revenue is growing, a lot of that revenue growth is driven by the ability to provide working capital to their customers, right? And so for them to provide that working capital, they've had to take loans. So the interest cost has increased at the same time as the revenue increase. And so what you find is at the end of the day, the net profit hasn't moved as much. And so it's just marginal, because a lot of the growth you're seeing at the top line is driven by expensive loans, that affect the bottom line, right? So I'm just trying to give you examples of how you can really tell a story and go beyond just the numbers. Like, okay, revenue has grown, okay, we call it a day. Or you say, things like a cash cycle, or cash at the end of period. For example, take the cash flow statement, has decreased. Well, yeah, we have the whole cash flow statement trying to explain what has happened over the period. And I think you can definitely take cues from that and try to explain why some of these things happened. And this is not only important from a explaining what has happened perspective, but it also can form the base for your investment thesis, right? So I know the report is in 5 to 10 parts. There's like the upfront section, which is like the landscape. There's the industry overview. There's also there's a risk analysis, there's a valuation, investment thesis, and some of the I think there's now ESG in the mix or something, right? So like a lot of these things that you see from even just check your financial bit, or even the data gathering, can underpin your investment thesis and help you get to that answer of what do you tell the investor, should they stay or leave, right? And so this person has an example here where they talk about how, it's not enough to say you spent more money on sales than you budgeted, right? It's more compelling to say that, okay, by the time you combine what you did in sales and marketing and, other data, yes, you spent more money overall, right? But at the end of the day, your unit profitability is better in maybe one channel or even overall, right? And if you take a classic example, say a company sort of increased their marketing and sales cost in a year. They increased that, but then what also happened in that year is they're able to increase sales. And because they have a huge fixed cost, they're able to significantly improve their profitability, right? Because if you had a fixed cost of, say, 100,000 before, and you were doing just 50 units, then your fixed cost per unit would be somewhere around 200, right? 200,000, I can't remember now. It will be around 200, I think. Yeah. Now, when you're able to do 100 units, that goes down significantly. It goes down, right, to like 100. Now, you might have spent, maybe 20K or 5K on marketing, but overall, your profitability per unit has increased, and that marketing can help drive even more sales in the long run. So that way, you're talking about a larger story that is able to spark a discussion on, okay, so you know what, deploying resources in an efficient manner, and we're getting more than we're giving out, right? And the second thing, you're talking about is, a lot of these insights also provide foresight about the future, right? So it just goes beyond looking at what happened in one quarter. And, remember when I started, I was talking about how if you say a company's revenue increased, but then when you look at the bottom line, it's a bit down, you need to go beyond what you're seeing right now. Like, you need to investigate beyond what happened in one quarter in one area and think about what that means for the future. Right. So if I take Nigerian examples, and again, your company, the company that you're reporting on is a Nigerian company, right? When you look at the macroeconomic environment, if, for example, you're working with a company that is maybe an FMCG, I know the company this year, I think is an oil, I can't remember, a palm oil company or something, right? Or a chemical company, I can't remember, right? If you take a company that is in the FMCG market, there is no way you have to actually bake in the foreign exchange crisis, because again, a lot of things that they're doing would be import dependent in a way, right? So you have to bake that inside and talk about, okay, what does this mean for the immediate and what does this mean for the future? If you see that, okay, this company, for example, currently has a lot of loans that they might need to pay up over the course of 5 years, and you don't see any line of sight to the kind of funding that might help to to sort that, or you see that they're going to continue to make foreign exchange purchases, but they don't have any foreign exchange earnings, right? So there's a bit of a mismatch, and that can literally tell you what's going to happen over the next couple of years, right? Considering if the naira continues to fall, and then inflation continues to be on the rise, and all these other factors. So it goes beyond just saying, oh, something happened in this quarter, to over the next couple of quarters, what will happen. And when I started, I gave an example of the banks, right? Of how, in 2022, I think was it 2022 this year? They recorded high revaluation gains. The dollar was officially devalued when it was this year, actually, when the new president came in, and it was a case of, banks were eating good. Forgive me for using the local parlance, right? But the thing is, CBN then came and said, you cannot report this as profit, but you have to keep it in as a buffer, right? So for some banks who already reported it as profit, if you looked at the revenue, you would have seen that, oh, this is high. But then that is a one-off thing, right? So you will not expect to record such large chunks of revaluation gains year on year. And so those are outliers that you need to exclude. So I'm going to move on quickly now to the how. I know that some of the folks you've spoken to in previous classes will have probably touched on this, and how like a lot of things are interrelated: the macroeconomy, the industry analysis, the company performance, competitors, and even assessing risk and some everything. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I just wanted to really show how you can turn insights and weave it seamlessly into a data form. So what we're going to go into now is the storytelling process, right? And the first thing you need to do is first understand the context. What are we doing? Are we trying to, do they have competitive advantages, for example, that makes them a market leader? Are they playing in each area in the market? Is their profitability gradually declining, or are they at a steady state? Is the macroeconomic environment favorable, or are they positioned to take advantage of the opportunities in the market, right? All these things, you have the context, you have the information. So first, you need to understand that. Now, you need to then figure out for the data, because again, you can't write a 10-page report without data, quite frankly, right? So you need to figure out, how do you want to show some of this visual? Are you going to use graphs? What kind of graphs are you using? Are you using line graphs? Are you using bar charts? Are you using scatter plots, right? Figuring out what best suits what. Because the report is mostly written, if it was PowerPoint, we could go into details of what kind of charts to use for what, and when to use pie charts, to use bars, how to color code, and how to just do some of those things. And I think we'll do a separate session for the PowerPoint page, which is why I was asking at the start of the session what this is for. But even in your writing, with the limited visuals that will be present, there is also a place of just picking the right things. Are you trying to show difference, between a couple of years? Are you trying to show growth over a period, right? Are you trying to show outliers, or in the case which you use some bubble chart stuff, right? So just figuring out what would best convey that message and how to compare. So are you using two colors? How do you use the colors and be consistent with those two colors throughout the reports? Because again, some of the people that will be reading this, investors, but in your case, maybe like your graders, they have a lot of reports to grade. And so you have to also help them to see things that you're trying to say in the faster and more efficient manner. The next thing you do is then declutter. You have all this information. Then you begin to see, okay, so what exactly am I driving at? What am I trying to say? What is the so what? Because at the end of the day, one can have a lot of data points, but if you don't make any sense of it, that's all it will just remain, data points. So you have to focus your attention on one. If you look at the bar on this graph in I think the fourth thing, is that focused attention. Like, what are you saying? What is the key message that you want the person that is checking this out to go home with at the end of the day, right? It's just similar to, say you have an elevator pitch, right? You're trying to say, oh, I think you should buy stock, maybe GTB or I don't know, Zenith or First Bank, right? It's oh, I think you should buy this stock. But, the person you're telling to buy is like, okay, tell me why. You don't want to go up and say, well, in 2022, Zenith Bank did this. In 2024, they will do this. Or in 2015, they did that. You have to you give it to them straight. 3 points. One, the share price is on the increase. I think the share price, is currently underpriced. For 1, 2, 3 reasons, I think it's underpriced because when you compare them one to their competitors, they have better numbers. Their price to book ratio is down. Their business is diversified, and so they're not hit by regular banking shenanigans, which was quite frequent when the former CBN president was around, or hit by a lot of macroeconomic environments, factors. And the third is like their customer base. They have a large customer base and they have more people coming to them, right? Or you can even make a case for OPay, right? A lot of people are using OPay now. OPay is trying to tap into the informal market. They have low transaction charges. That might be a problem, but you think that over the next couple of years they will turn that around. And you also think that efficient network is something that is definitely key because people are gravitating towards that. But then while saying those things, you also must consider things from different angles, because all the things you've told me now, I could easily turn them around and make them, all the things I've said now, I could easily turn them around and make them, look like a disadvantage, right? So the first thing I said was, oh, you're gravitating towards the informal economy. Well, how do we know that this is sustainable, right? The informal economy gravitated more towards them during a cash scarcity period. When there's cash, who says they're not going to go back immediately? That's one. Second one is, you mentioned how their services are efficient, their services are great. Well, that's because they're only servicing about 20,000 people, 200K people. What happens when they start servicing 5 million, 10 million people? Do they have technological capacity to do that? So you're telling a story, you're focusing your attention on one thing, but you're also trying to ensure that it's balanced, right? You consider several aspects, several areas, such that at the end of the day, your thesis is robust and can stand even in the face of potential changes, right? And then you tell a story. And that story would be based on all the different things we've spoken about. What are you focusing your attention on? 1, 2, 3. Okay, you're focusing on this. This is how this links with that. And this is how they all come together to tell that story of either change or that story of transformation that you think will happen over the next couple of years. Of course, the future would always be underpinned by what has happened in the past, right? And so that would be sort of the driving factor for what you think will happen. Of course, perhaps some of the things that the company is planning to do, or some of the things that you've heard them talk about in the news. Sorry, a second, please. Okay, so when we talk about a story, right? You need to have like one key theme at the top, which is like the key theme that you're trying to get out, which is that we want to issue a buyer recommendation. I should have changed this. But yeah, we want to issue a buyer recommendation for CAP company, literally. Or we want to issue a sell recommendation for CAP. Or we want to issue a hold recommendation for CAP. Well, why do you want to do that? 1, 2, 3. Okay, these are your 3 reasons. Well, those 3 reasons, did you pull them out of thin air? Well, no, there are supporting evidences as to why we want to pick these things, why we want them to be why we want this company to be the company that we are actually looking at. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have folks in the room try to fill these boxes with things on the left. So how many people do we have? And Chiamaka, I'd like if you can help me out here. How many people do we have in the room, and how many people can participate in this exercise such that we can group folks and then they can quickly put this in boxes and sort of share what they're putting where and why they are grouping certain elements together?
Okay, we're about 24. Okay, 22. We're currently 26, but you know, there are some people that are not a part of the participants, myself, yourself. So let's say 20 people to be on the safe side. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I was
Okay.
saying, can we group those 20 people into groups into like 4 groups?
Okay, I can do that. Let me
Thanks.
see. Please, if I call your name, just so I know that you are part of this. Bodamia Kujiat. I'm sorry if I mispronounce any names. Bodamia Kujiat, can you either unmute or just raise your hand so I know that you're part of this? Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Dr. Duru, so you're number 1, please. Just take notes. Dr. Duru Erasmus.
Yes, I'm around.
Okay. Dr. Duru, you're number 2.
Okay, thank you.
Chiemezie Ukeje. Chiemezie Ukeje. Okay. Daniel. Hello?
Sorry, Chiamaka, yes. Can we just pull people into breakout rooms and then
If I
rather
do that,
than do a
many
roll
people
call?
will, okay, if I do that, that means the people that are not even a part of the will go
Oh,
into.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
fair. Okay.
So
I'm
that's
just
what I'm
trying to keep us mindful of time. No worries.
Let's do that. Okay, just say what needs to be done. So when we do that, we can then we see how it works.
Yeah. No, I just need them to be in groups of 5, like 4 groups, and then let them try to fit in the different boxes on the left into this 8 boxes, 9 boxes on the right. So what we're trying to say, the overall answer is that, you know, MOH can increase availability of usable vaccines through strategic process improvements. Okay, so what are the 3 main points that back this up? What are the sub points that, you know, back each of the main points up? So we're trying to create a story for increase of the use of vaccines through strategy process improvement.
Okay, so let me just create the breakout room. Okay. Wait, you will join the group, but when you get there, just remove yourself. Sorry. All right. So let's see. I believe the room have been created. Hi, Alaide, how long is this session supposed to last for? This workout session.
Yeah, so the breakout would be like a 15-minute exercise. I would also pop in and see how folks are doing and if they need any help. So do we have everyone in groups now?
Yes, I have done the breakout room.
Okay. So let me just start with group 1. Hi, Chiamaka. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can't hear
Oliver.
you. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, yeah. So it seemed when I joined the breakouts, like my screen stopped showing. So I won't be able to join the breakouts because I'm sharing screen.
Okay.
Could you help visit the breakout and see if folks understand what they're doing and if they're able to get started? Hello, Chiamaka. Can you hear me? Hello, Chiamaka.
Yes, I can hear you.
Please,
Hi.
can we pull the folks back in?
Okay.
So they're unable to see the screen share in their breakout.
Okay. Let me pull them back.
So it's a bit counterproductive to have them apart. So we can just have the exercise done in the room. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We couldn't get, I think some folks couldn't really see the presentation from their breakout, and so it's hard to do the task. So what we're going to just do is have everyone here and we'll do it together. So can I get like 2 volunteers to take a pass at this? Feel free to raise your hand if you want to volunteer.
Did everybody
Hello?
get that? If you want to volunteer, please feel free to raise your hand or mute to speak.
Yeah.
There are no wrong answers. Just, just take a stab at it.
Anyone?
Chim, is it okay? Do you want to, okay, Carlos Savior, thank you for muting. Go ahead, please.
I want to ask, can we choose any answer from the boxes by the left hand side into the 3 first column?
Yeah, so you have to, that's what we're going to do. We're going to choose all the empty 9 boxes from the boxes on the left, right? But you also have to ensure that the boxes you're picking, the one for the top 3, it accurately summarizes 3 strong reasons why they can increase the availability of vaccine by improving their processes. So yes, it's not enough to just pick any random ones. You have to pick ones that pretty much align with like what we are trying to do. But yes, we're picking all the answers you need for the boxes are on the left. Rest assured.
Okay, Carlo, you can continue, please.
Okay, let me do my homework.
Okay, all right.
Okay, you know what? I can actually give another 3 to 5 minutes for everyone in the broader group here to just take a stab at it, and then we can have volunteers. So you have the next 4 minutes. Chemaka, please start the timer.
All right.
And then we can all get into it.
You can start raising your hands if you want to speak. We have the minutes left. Please feel free. There are no wrong answers, just to get this class to be very interactive. Okay, thank you. I see. Okafor Mesoma. In the next 1 minute, I'll call you to speak. Okay, Mesoma, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks,
Good
Chemaka. Miss Sama, please have the floor.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, I don't know if I'm correct, but I think one of the top boxes should have to create an advisory board.
Okay. So you want us to have this.
Yeah, I think the first box
So
box by your left. Yeah.
this.
Yes.
This. Okay. Which other
Yeah.
one?
That's all I thought about.
Just one? Okay. Thanks for your contribution. Anyone else want to pick it up from where you...
Chiamaka Ibe, please, over to you.
Okay. The first three, I think that is really number one. Then improve vaccine management at the local primary health center, local primary health facility. And then train improve the train workers, train workers to administer vaccine. I think that's the first.
What's the third one? Sorry, I didn't get the third one.
The first one is create an advisory board.
Okay,
then second, improve vaccine management at primary health facilities. Then train workers that will administer the vaccine.
Okay. So what would then be the sub boxes? What would be in the sub boxes?
I'm not taking time to go through that. Let me just take time.
Okay. Anyone else?
Ebuka Ekwena wants to try.
Okay, go Ebuka.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening.
I'll pick one box and I'll give you what I have under it.
Fantastic.
I'll go for improve the distribution of vaccine. So yeah, under it you can have optimized delivery routes. And also the second box is improve
optimized delivery.
Then you can have minimize spoilage during transport on the second box.
Sorry, I'm looking for that. Awesome. Okay. That looks good. What other one do you have? I see Moisola's hand is raised.
Yeah,
sorry,
Moisola,
do you have any other one before we move on to Moisola? Okay, I think Ebuka is muted. Yeah, Moisola, go ahead.
Okay, good evening. I have two boxes, for the top ones.
Two main boxes. Do you have the sub boxes?
Two main boxes. Yeah, I have sub boxes for the two of them that I have.
Fantastic. Okay, let's go.
Okay. So the first one is to reduce all. Let me just read what I wrote, please. Reduce all forms of losses, and how we can do that is by building capabilities of the management and
to administer,
train the workers to administer the vaccine.
Sorry, hold on. There are two different ones. Are you picking both of them?
Yeah,
So
those
is
are
this
the
what you're
sub
picking? 1,
under
2.
yes,
Okay. So
yes.
what's your other bucket?
Then improve distribution of vaccines,
Okay. And then
and it's by making delivery trucks more secure.
this is under improved distribution of vaccines. Is that correct?
Yeah, making
Okay. And then is that the only
making
one?
delivery trucks more secure and no, optimize delivery routes.
Optimize. Okay, another person. Optimize delivery routes. Okay.
Mm,
Do you have a third? Do you have a
I think
third
that's all I
bucket? Oh,
have.
that's what you
That's all
have.
I
Okay.
have.
Anyone else want to go?
I'm not done with the third one, so I don't.
Okay, no worries. No
Okay.
worries. Anyone else?
Thomas has his hand raised up.
Okay, Thomas.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, Thomas.
I just have one box on top and then the sub
Okay.
boxes.
Yeah,
Just
that
one.
works.
Okay, for the first one is train workers to administer the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the boxes down is reward honest worker and then reduce all forms of loss.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all for your contributions. This is a great try. I think one thing that I might have forgot to mention is that you have to do it in a mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive manner. So what do I mean by mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive? Carlo, just 1 second. Let me provide this additional context. So if you want to speak, you can take it into consideration. If you choose losses, everything that has to do with losses has to be under one bucket. If you choose people, everything that has to do with training, rewarding, capacity, all have to be under one bucket. Now, if you choose maybe transportation, everything that has to do with transportation has to be under that sub bucket. So things like ensuring that you use heat sensitive or heat resistant ampoules, right, will fall under that. Ensuring that you optimize the route, fall under that. Ensuring that you also, I think I saw one other one, make your truck secure will fall under that. So you have to be messy. You can't have loss on that one and have loss somewhere else. It will just come across as not being very coordinated. So I see some people's hands are raised. Let us clear this and then get started again. Okay, yes. First person can go ahead.
That's Carlo.
Okay.
Carlo.
Yeah, I want to say the first one I think is create advisory board. Then under the advisory board we have ensure the community knows the vaccine are safe and reliable. Then the third one under that is train workers to administer vaccine.
Okay.
Then the next one I have is what do you call is build capabilities of manager at local facility. Then under that we have reduced theft by workers. Then the third one, reward honest workers. That is what I have.
Okay. So Carl, let's break down what you said now. You said the top two for you are the strategy to ensure that there's availability of usable vaccine by improving strategic processes, is to create an advisory board and to build capability of the managers at the local facilities. Now, remember, I know I said I wanted to be messy, but you also have to ensure that your answer directly answers the question. They said they want to increase the use the availability of vaccines, right? And they want to improve processes. An advisory board, what would an advisory board do? An advisory board will provide guidance on, okay, this is what should be done. They can help to improve coordination among the stakeholders. You didn't mention that at all, right? An advisory board as well can also support the managers, which I think you put under a completely different bucket, right? So you also have to be mindful of the fact that you're trying to solve a question. So you're trying to solve, something, and you have to ensure that the answer directly ties back in, right? Because if you come to me and say you want to increase the availability of vaccines and it's a process improvement problem, to be honest, if you were left to me, I would tell you that I don't think the advisory board is who to call, because it's a process thing. Yeah, if you have an advisory board, okay, you have managers that have capabilities, okay, but are the managers the ones that are going to administer the vaccines? No. You want to reduce steps, okay, reduce steps. That does not still solve for having more quantities, right? Because if you reduce steps at the facility at the end of the day, what about the items that are broken in transit? What about the items that are lost in transit, right? Or even when they are trying to order for these things, the advisory board can advise and say, okay, do it this way, but you still need to streamline the order process. You need to ensure that, okay, your delivery routes are optimal, because you need to get them to you in a timely manner, right? The second one you mentioned was ensuring the communities know that the vaccines are safe. That is great. It's definitely a good one, right? But that does not have any direct correlation with building managers' capacity, for example, because managers' capacity is to run the facility. So the manager's capacity is to ensure that, okay, there's no theft, right? Which I think you got, right? Manager's capacity is to train the workers. Okay, this is how to do this. This is how to do that, and to reward. But like when it comes to ensuring the community is safe, manager's capacity is not directly correlated with that, right? So we also, and there are different ways you can think about it, but what should remain, the focal point is, at the end of the day, you want to ensure that there's two things that are under every bucket. They directly speak to each bucket, and the three of them combined, they provide a compelling case, a compelling reason why those things you've chosen will drive the change you're looking at. Okay? We can have one last person, and then would move on from here. Anyone else want to try based on the feedback I've given so far?
Miss Summer had his hand raised up. I don't know if he still wants to say something.
Go ahead.
Hello,
No,
Miss
sorry.
Summer.
Sorry, I changed my mind.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay,
What do you mean by you changed your mind?
Somebody else had their hand raised up. Although Ibube is okay. Do you still want to say something?
No. It's fine.
You've changed your mind as well?
I have.
Why is everyone changing
No,
their
don't change your
mind?
mind. Please just say
I
what you want.
don't feel comfortable about this.
Not
So we don't have
necessarily that
any.
I wanted to change my mind. I guess I wanted to add to what the speaker was saying, but she's covered it, so it's fine.
No,
And
please
I'm
feel
not.
free to add what you want to add.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, I just had I had like a point and then subsets to more like participating in the creation of the storyline.
Please go on. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was going to suggest under improved coordination among the stakeholders, I was going to say that ensure the community knows the vaccines are safe and reliable, because the community is one stakeholder. There's also the need to create an advisory board. But I was thinking, should they create an advisory board be before? So should an advisory board be the one to improve coordination among stakeholders? So I thought about the fact that I've not been on the call from the beginning and I just wanted to listen. So maybe I'll push it back to the speaker. How's the thought process like? I was thinking the create an advisory board should be on top of improved coordination among stakeholders. So I don't know what the role of the advisory body is in this case. Because typically it could be a stakeholder management committee or something. So I don't know.
Okay.
Don't mind
So
me.
also
Just
another thing to think about is you don't have to use all the boxes, right? I think there are about 20 on the left and we have just 9 on the right. So you don't even need to use, there are some that are just detractors, right? If you say one of the key things you need is coordination among stakeholders, just have that there as coordination. Under coordination, you want to ensure that the communities know that the vaccines are safe, right? You also want to ensure that, okay, who are the other stakeholders? That's either the people that are administering the vaccines or even the managers. So again, you don't have to use everything, because an advisory board here, I don't know that an advisory board is what you need to improve processes, right? This is an operational problem or operational strategy. So an advisory board could literally just be there as a detractor. So you also have to ensure that as you're looking at things, you're looking at it and you're sifting out the noise, right? Because, okay, I see Shakirat wants to speak. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. Shakirat, please go ahead. Hello, Shakirat.
Hi, Shakirat. If you want to speak, if you're speaking, you're muted. So please unmute and speak.
I think there's a bit of a network.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
we
we can
hear
hear
you.
Yeah, so my first point will be the improve the distribution of vaccines.
Okay, 1 second. Let me see.
And under it, I will have make delivery trucks more secure and minimize spoilage during transport.
Oh, no, that's not the one you choose. Minimize spoilage during transport and make delivery trucks more
minimize
secure.
spoilage during transport and make delivery trucks. One will be reduce vaccine losses occurring during transit to local primary health center facilities.
That's your second point?
Yes, that's my second point.
Okay. Yep.
And I will have
sorry, you're breaking.
Optimize delivery routes under it.
Optimize delivery route, yep.
Yeah, I will have optimized and reduce all form of losses.
Reduce all form of losses.
Is that
what you're saying? Okay. Okay.
Yes,
do you have a
that's
third one? Okay. So I like how you started.
I don't have the third one.
But yeah, that's fine. So let me quickly give feedback on this, right? I like how you started, but the thing that I actually now was missing out on was the fact that you already said that you were going to minimize spoilage during transport. And then you come back here and say reduce all form of losses, right? So, and then you first talked about distribution, and then you talked about when something is in transit, it's also like, it's like a distribution thing, right? So what I would actually do is I could say improve the distribution of vaccines, quite all right. But then under that, a sub thing could be to say you're going to reduce all form of losses, because either it is during through transit or having trucks that are not secure, losses all occur rather through that means, right? And so you can just have one broad, you're going to improve distribution, you're going to improve the management of the vaccine. So if I'm just going to try and wrap this up really quickly so we can go on to the next one. But I would have improved the management at the centers, improve the distribution, because you need to first get it to you, right? You need to improve how you manage it at the center, which is where things like trainings come in, which is where things like, maybe you want to reduce steps, you want to ensure that the ampoules are not sensitive to heat. You want to do one of those things. Then when it comes to distribution, one, you want to ensure that losses in transit are off. you want to reduce all losses. So losses here, all forms of losses literally covers that. Loss through breakage is under all form of losses, right? So at the end of the day, you want to try and be messy and ensure that you get to your answer in a cohesive manner and ensure that you're not losing your audience. Okay, we are past the time we allotted for this, but thank you all for participating. I think one thing that I want you to take away from this exercise is the fact that in your writing process and in your research process, you will come across a lot of data sets. Here we have just 20. You might even come across 50. By the time you start your modeling and you start doing growth rates, CAGRs, and the likes, or when you start looking at the macroeconomic environment, there are different angles. Someone, I know, like, say Nigeria's problem is multifaceted. And so where do you want to start from? If you're an FMCG company, you can say, oh, the purchasing power of people, is down, right? We have multidimensional poverty in the land. You can also come and say, well, there's inflation in double digits, so people cannot even buy. One, people are poor, there's inflation. And then you can also say, well, there's an exchange rate problem, right? But if you know that the company you're dealing with is an indigenous company, for example, and they don't sort of import any products, you can see that by so doing, you've eliminated one of the potential answers by saying, okay, well, the exchange rate problem does not really apply to them because they're not really affected. But if the exchange rate problem does not apply to them from a importing perspective, it could apply to them from a funding perspective. If you look at their balance sheet and you see that, okay, they have, foreign investors, it could be, oh, well, you're earning in Naira and you're paying back in dollars, so that's a problem, right? Or you can also find that, well, there is a lot of pilferage or loss, along the distribution cycle. If like one of their biggest sales area is Lokoja, for example, well, I mean, there's no Boko Haram again, but then when it comes to transporting the goods to those areas, is there a risk there? And how are they mitigating those? So you will come across different things, or it could even be as little as, oh, well, now the CBN has a mandate that people can no longer import the products that they sell. So that's created a local demand for them and they're going to tap into it, right? So there's so many things that you will come across as you do your research, as you do your review of their annual reports. The banks themselves, sorry, not the banks, the company, would have like over 20-page long annual report saying, oh, notes to the accounts, sustainability, this is all about trying to do that. But it's your job as the investment analyst to pretty much sift out the noise and find the reasons that are cogent enough and tenable. And in so doing, you also have to consider reasons why that will not stand and why it could be a potential failure, right? So that's what I just wanted us to quickly look at. Now, I'm going to share quickly the how when it comes to writing. There's a document that we're just going to breeze through, and then from there, we're going to do like a little, we're going to look at some samples. Okay, so this is it. Clarity is good. One of the partners I worked with early on in my career shared this document with me, and my writing just hasn't been the same, right? There are 7 key steps here. And the first is to use short, simple sentences. Your sentences don't have to be so convoluted. And in the process of trying to show your literacy prowess, you lose people, right? You cannot have long sentences with multiple subordinate clauses. It should be short. They should have all the key things a sentence needs to have: the subject, the verb, the object. And if you want to start with a verb, make it a verb that describes an action, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is to use plain English. Like, the best English is simple English, like this person has written, right? If you have a tendency to write, and this person was trying to shade consultants, but don't mind the person, try to read your work out loud and see if you really pass across the message, right? And the next one is like, start with your logic. Start with what you're trying to do, like the main message, and then you would unpack, every other thing later, like the how you want the language to be compelling, or how you want, like, start with all that, and then until you get through the logic. So if you identify of the three, sub bullets, that one of the things you're trying to do, for example, is you want to minimize all losses, or you want to improve distribution, right? You can then begin to think about, okay, so what do I have that sort of supports this? And then you can begin to build the supporting facts, as you can have them as building blocks on each part of the supporting factors, right? Then you want to also ensure that your documents are not too long. Well, unfortunately, you have to write a 10 to 30 page document, so I cannot advise you to make that shorter because that's like what the institute is asking of you. But you also want to ensure that it's more of content and not a lot of fluff, right? Not by using a lot of words, but then you're getting to like your actual points farther on in the document. That is not good, right? And then leave the pyramid. The pyramid principle is one of the things I just taught you, that exercise we did. The pyramid is pretty much starting at the top, having a governing thought. And in your case, the governing thought could be you want to ask them to sell, you want to ask them to hold, or you want to ask them to buy, right? That's your governing thought. Every other thing you do should have a supporting message that in the end links you directly back to the beginning, which is where you started from, right? So it should always start from there. Now, there's another element that is here that they've added, which I think I mentioned in passing when we started, was about having like an introduction, having a situation, a complication, and a resolution, right? You cannot just come and say, well, this is the situation, or this is my resolution. My resolution is that they're going to grow their revenues by 50% over the next 5 years, full stop. Well, that is incomplete. It doesn't stand on the back of anything, right? What you need to do is say, okay, based on the situation is that over the last 5 years, they have grown revenues by X amount, or it has grown at a CAGR of 5%. Now, what is the complication? You can say something like, buoyed by increase in local demand, or driven by governmental regulations, or driven by something. What I expect is that over the next couple of years, this growth will either be constant or it will rise significantly. And for you to say something will rise significantly, you better have like actual facts or actual potential activities that you think will drive that through the roof, right? So it's not enough to just have a governing thought or a so what in that sense. You really need to have something that is going to drive it. The sixth one is really about like talking to the clients and not reading to them, right? So clients, investors, they like to read concise, well written documents that say what they mean, So it's like, I'm telling you 3 things and you can see it clearly, not that I'm going round and round and trying to get to something eventually. And last one is like, when you're writing a paragraph, because in your case, you're not doing a PowerPoint, every paragraph should speak to one main thought. You don't want to get things so muddled up that people are like, okay, I thought we were talking about, people team. The next minute we're talking about revenues, or we're talking about operations in local job. That doesn't follow. You're going to lose people that way. You have to follow one thought. If for my first, and the way the report is structured, we'll quickly look at one of the old reports now and just quickly analyze how that has been written, right? You should always talk about one thing at a time. You don't want to have different things because it's just going to end up confusing the people that are reading or that are using the document. So every page, but in your case, you can't have every page, but every paragraph should be talking about one idea. All the important ideas should be per paragraphs, and you should capture them in that manner. That way they will remember. Okay. So I'm going to quickly, but I think I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions before we go into the samples that I want us to kind of quickly analyze, and before I share some other things. Anyone have any question so far?
If you have any questions, please raise your hand or drop it in the chat box. If there are none, we can proceed. I think we can proceed, Elijah.
Okay. So we're going to quickly look at this report. And this was from the winners from last year. They start by telling us the executive summary. I forgot to mention, is pretty much the most important part of your document. It's the most important part because a lot of times, and you find that this is true even in the real world, that a lot of the people you're trying to get to read your work or look at what you've done don't really have the luxury of time. And so what they do is they try to understand what you're saying by looking at your executive summary. So your executive summary should literally, it should tell me everything I need to know about this company. And I should be able to make a decision based on that if I'm going to buy or sell. Now, when I'm doing my due diligence, when I want to know, okay, is this truly a good stock, then I can come back and say, let me do a detailed, run through of everything that you have in the report. But from your executive summary, the rule of thumb is it should contain everything that an investor, management, board of directors should know, right? And so what they've done here is they've gone straight. They are issuing a buy recommendation. In the first slide, it should literally be, your first 2 lines should tell us what you're trying to get at. Like, it's the so what, like, you send me a report, why should I read this? Well, the so what is I want you to buy. Okay, now that you told me the so what, it's like, well, why is that the fact? Then they talk about the 3 reasons why. The company is a recognized flagship carrier with dominant market share. Over the past 2 years, they have faced some challenge. Remember I said situation? They told us situation. The company is a globally recognized flagship carrier with dominant market share. Fantastic. And they are in an oligopolistic domestic airline industry. Now, this person or this report writers, what they've attempted to do is something that I like to call killing 2 birds with 1 stone. They could have easily just said, QAN is Australia's enduring and globally recognized flagship carrier, full stop. And over the 3 years, they have battled through, COVID-related challenges. But they told us 2 things. They told us that they're not only the flagship, but they are in an oligopolistic domestic airline industry. Of course, I want to know that as an investor, because again, it's an airline. It's bad enough that, people are recovering from COVID, but I can find additional comfort in the fact that, well, it's an oligopoly. And I can definitely capitalize on that, right? Rather than knowing that, okay, it's a free market, willing buyer, willing seller, I know that, okay, to some degree, they can exert some sort of, influence, or they can have some sort of bargaining power in the space, right? So they've told us those 2 things upfront. And then they tell you that we're not oblivious to the fact that there have been some challenges, which takes us back to the complication bits, right? They tell us that there's been some complications because of COVID border closures, and then the company has lost some money. But then they come back with a resolution, which is that they have risen from the ashes and they are emerging with greater earnings and with greater operational efficiency. I mean, this literally tells you in 5 sentences all that you need to know about the growth prospect and about the company. It tells you what has happened in the past. It tells you what makes them be in such a unique position to take advantage of their industry. And it tells you, like, what is going to happen, or it gives you a sense of what is going to happen, right? And now they go on to talk about, the 3 reasons that underpin. Like, this is just like a sort of setting the stage kind of conversation. Then they go on to talk about, like, one of the reasons why they think, the 3 reasons why you should get the stock is that, 1, they have materially mispriced the market. They've been materially mispriced, rather, as the market has underappreciated. And they tell you why. Why do they think so? what they're basically saying is we think the market is underpriced because they've mispriced the company, because given the 3 items or the 3 reasons I've highlighted here, this company should not be where it is. One is that they have a robust demand outlook, they have strong operational agility, and they are able to recover their cost headwinds. And then they have a diverse portfolio with a fleet of loyal customers. And so this already tells you, okay, this is the why. These 3 reasons are the why. And then they go into the deep dive, 1, 2, 3. Remember the exercise we just did where we have the governing thoughts. We have the upfront one. Their answer is that, the company has been mispriced. Then the bottom 3 is, there's a robust demand outlook. The second one is they have strong agility. And then the third one is like the portfolio is diverse. And then what they do is, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 1 is here, and there are 3 sub-bullets under 1. Similarly for 2 is here, there are 3 sub-bullets, and 3, there are 3 sub-bullets. What you will find as you read this sub-bullet is that they are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, in the sense that you will not find anything about demand in point 2. And in point 1, you will not find anything about profits, right? So if you look at point 1, they talk about, the market has underestimated the resilience of their demand profile. And they're going to talk about their demand recovery has been severely discounted. The share price have remained, depressed due to operational challenges. Leading indicators suggest that there's increased demand that's coming post FY 2023. When you go on to look at the profitability, talk about how, there's a great cost variabilism, which is allowing them rather to optimize their available seat kilometers. They also talk about how, they are able to offset inflation. And then they also talk about how, their unit revenue, benefits from route optionality. So they have literally told you a lot of things, but all these 3 things they have mentioned all tie back to one thing. Their profitability will be enhanced post-COVID. Simple. The third one is very similar, telling you that, okay, yes, it's an airline business, it's prone to risk, but we are able to leverage revenue diversification to reduce that risk. And they start by talking about how they have a loyalty flywheel where people can use their points earned, to get unrivaled customer satisfaction. Second one they talk about is, you have exclusive contracts, exclusive arrangements. These are all things that you've identified from maybe, the company analysis, their industry analysis, from their financials. It's all about taking all the data that you have and bucketing them in such a way that you can say, okay, is this a strength? Yes. What does this fall under broadly? What does this translate to, right? If you come and tell me that you have a fleet of loyal customers, it just means that, you'll be able to diversify your portfolio, and then your cash flows will not really be at risk. If you come and tell me that you have exclusive contracts and arrangements, yes, you can come and tell me that, okay, it's a way to increase revenue. But when you really think about it, it's a way to ensure that you have cash flow, and cash flow is king, because if you have contracts that ensure that people pay you at a certain date, yes, it is revenue, but in the same vein, it also helps you sort of give some cash flow assurance, right? And the next one is, they have additional businesses from their imports and exports route catchments, which would increase their yields from freight and volumes. So from just reading this one page, I can literally tell you, or we can all say a thing or two about this company. And we didn't have to read the full report, but from just reading these first 3 things, we can get a sense of what the company is about. And then they also share like key financials upfront before they then go into the report proper and talk about the industry, talk about the landscape. And if you recall some of the things I was saying earlier, they have graphs, from the top, and they use 2 colors, which is very key. Remember, I was saying that you had to be consistent with your colors, right? They use the red and I think teal. So even in the graph they have here, that, the red is for things they really want to emphasize because it's mostly red, or the green is for something they want to emphasize. If you see a graph and you see it's all red, but green is one of them, then that, okay, that's different from the others, in the sense that here you see that they have numbers from 2017 to 2021, But in 2022, it's an expected number. It's not something that has been actualized. And so they're just trying to show that. And throughout the report, you see that same theme is followed. In fact, when you come to the investment thesis summary, they pretty much take back the 3 things that they mentioned upfront and they deep dive into it here. Right? Unit profitability, diversity, multiple revenue streams. I mean, they use different words, but it's pretty much the same thing that you're seeing. And they deep dive, they follow the same, pyramid principle that we just went through. So it's very key. Even when you look at things like the environmental ESG, they start with like a little phrase which captures most of the things you're trying to say, and then they do deep dive. It's always important to have that because it's a large report in a way, about 10 pages of actual report before you have appendix. And what you don't want to do is have people just read things without fully getting the details or what you're trying to talk about in the report. So right now, I just wanted to quickly share, that so that we can see some of the things that we've practiced and how it ties into the report. Does anyone have any question here before we move on? I see a message in the chat. Oh, this must have been from before. Yeah, I think it was from before. Okay. Does anyone have any question here before we move on? Okay, just share mark asking people to drop their questions. Okay, I guess there is no question. So now what we're going to do is quickly look at 1 or 2 samples of sort of writings that I've included here, and we'll try to just sort of dissect okay, so if you look at this, right, this is a bit of an opening, right? And I think your opening really matters. And this is not for your summary bits, because for your summary, we've already spoken about that.
Hi, Lady,
Okay,
there's a question.
Yeah, I just saw it. Can you tell us the app used for writing this kind of report? You mean the one I just shared? So it's pretty much your Word, right? You write it in Word documents. It's a Word document you use to write it. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm guessing you've done in the course of this training or as you were preparing for this program is learn how to write, use Microsoft Office. Most of what you see is from Microsoft Office. I mean, some people have, specialties in design, and so they're able to add like additional context, add images and things to the report, but reports are pretty much written in Word. I hope that answers your question. Have you guys done any training on Microsoft Office, or do you know how to use Microsoft Office? Okay. Yeah, no worries. So, a lot of what we've talked about rather talks about, okay, the structure, how to ensure that it's messy, how to structure the story. Now, when you're actually doing the writing, you need to also, there's some stylistic things, but then there are also like grammatical things, right? You need to have verbal, okay, yes, for the word, yeah. You need to have verb, subject, agreement. And I'm guessing these are things you already know, you're all scholars anyway. But you need to also have grammar. You have to ensure that grammatically your writing is correct. That's number one. I'm sure they're checking for that. But then you also have to write in such a way that it is interesting to the. Okay, I see there's a question. I'll come back to that, Ebuka. Thanks. You also have to ensure that you write in a way that it's a bit interesting for the reader. So if you read this, it says the path to achieving universal access to energy by 2030 and a carbon neutral system in 2060, as highlighted in the ETP, is beset with significant challenges, primarily in the financial domain, right? This person is trying to say that overall, there's a need for money to drive energy access in Nigeria. But also the way they write it, they tell two things. They tell the fact that, one, this is not something that somebody somewhere is just thinking about, that, oh, we need money. They're saying that based on already available plans by the governments, by international organizations, based on, estimates from all these players, there is a need for us to transition, to a low carbon economy. But there's a need to solve certain challenges, primarily financial challenges. And then they go on to tell you, why they think this is the case, why are there challenges? And they say, a recent study conducted by WEF, again, substantiating this data and where it's from, reveals that there are challenges related to currency convertibility, where in Nigeria, a lot of investors bring in their dollars. By the time they want to take it out, the Naira has shifted. There's a lot of problem. Talk about how, if I may come closer to financing structure, there's another problem there. And then the affordability and access to technology supply. These are all challenges that impede growth in the sector. What this person has done is they have told you the broader problem. And the broader problem is that we need finance to help solve the energy transition problem. Now, they've told you what the sub-problems are, what has led us to agree that there's a financial need or the financial problem, which is the fact that there's currency convertibility problem, the financing structure is not so great, and then this too would also impede the ability to afford technology, because when you want to transition to a low carbon economy, you need, renewable energy technologies, right? Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, right? So they've also told you, there is a need to access technology, which would help to get there's a need to get technology for growth in the sector. They've not only told you that they need finance, but told you why. Now they now come to tell you, well, these challenges are grave because even though Nigeria is Africa's largest economy, they are not well ranked among the top countries in the country. They are ranked a 108 out of 120, according to the Energy Transition Index. And so they are not ready to transition when you compare them to their sub-Saharan African peers. This is another thing that is good to do. When you're doing your industry analysis, for example, it's something so you should always sort of do some comparison with your is it industry analysis or comparative analysis? It's always good to do some sort of comparison so that people can really place or compare, or it brings it home better, like how big or how small the problem is. If you compare, and you should also compare likes for likes. I'm sure the person that took you for the other parts of the report would have covered this on how you need to use comparables. So at the end of the day, at the end of this paragraph, this person closes by saying that this position highlights the urgency with which we need to address this challenge. And what are the challenges? What is the challenge? The ultimate challenge is the need for finance, right? And they leave it at that. This is a strong opening. It tells you, it substantiates the data, first off, by telling you it's from credible sources. It tells you what the problem is, and it tells you, why that complication is there, right? When you look at, there's a currency convertibility problem, financing structure, and also access to technology problem, right? And it wraps it up by saying, all this has led to the country being ranked low compared to others in the region, right? Now, before we do the second one, anyone have any comment or question on this? And I'll also answer the question in the chat briefly. Okay. I see there's no question. Let me just go on now to the person that had a question on the group. Someone is asking for my take on the table they had under their key financials. Let me just go back to that. I'm not sure I recall what that table is about. Okay. So please feel free to unmute if you're the one. Is this the table you're referring to? The one that has historicals and the forecast? Hello, are you still on?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That's the table, ma'am.
Okay. Do you think this has clutter? That's interesting. I think it also depends on how you present it, right? For example, this page is quite legible. I don't see that the font is too small. I think it's also even because of the way I'm presenting it, but it seems to have captured everything well. The things I would normally look out for are things like, alignments. And as you can see, the table ends on the same line as the source on the left. When you look at the margins on the right, it doesn't look like they overstepped in any way. On the left is similar. And then there's not significant, but there's decent spacing in between. The table doesn't look too clogged. I think this is fine, to be quite honest. I wouldn't have any problem with this. Because again, you also want to ensure that your summary sort of captures, and you have just one page for that, right? Your summary sort of captures everything you're trying to say without having to spill over. So you have to learn how to do this in a stylistic manner and also convey all the information you're trying to convey at the same time. But what was your issue with it? Just the clutter? Is that it?
Okay, yes, that was one of the issues. But the main issue I feel with the table is that, from what you said, always, like you said, focus your data. So there is no focus on that table. There was nothing they were trying to communicate. They just pasted a bunch of numbers.
I see. Okay, so I see. So when I talk about focusing data, right? Because this is a Word document, if it was in PowerPoint, yes, you would not need to have your key financials up here like this, because you're presenting and you want them to see something, unless you have something to say about the data. But because some of these numbers are things you refer to along the line as you're writing. So if you look at this summary, they mention things like profitability. They mentioned their 2024 EBIT margin. They mentioned some basis points. They mentioned one or two things. It's always good to have that visual there, just as a, if anyone wants to reference it or go back to it. Because as you go along and write, because this is a Word report, you will not necessarily be able to just write to have like little bars for the things you're trying to say along the story. So if you look down, you see things like they refer to a lot of numbers and then they call them exhibits even. So you need to have your different exhibits on there so that people can always refer to like the source of the data. And if they want to compare over a period of time, they can always, so it's always it's a good to have. That's what I would say. But if it was PowerPoint, you won't necessarily need to have that because it's presentation. It's a bit more different than this as a full report. Does that answer your question? Hello? I can't hear you. Hello, are you there? Ebuka?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just look at the second sample, and then we'll just open the floor broadly for questions, and then we can give you back some time. Now, this is another sort of writing. So this person is looking to share information about, sorry, I'm trying to go full screen. Yeah. So this person is trying to talk about the need for clean energy, or I think carbon market. You can see at the end, talk about one of the innovative solutions that they need is a carbon market. But they take you on a journey, and this journey tells you, okay, so what is the situation? The situation is that there are extreme weather conditions in Nigeria, and there are increasing temperature and variable, there's an increased temperature rather, and variable rainfall and flooding. But look at how they write it. They say extreme weather conditions in Nigeria, ranging from increased temperature and variable flood and rainfall to flooding. They talk about three different things, but they don't just say there are extreme weather conditions in Nigeria, including increasing temperature, variable rainfall, and flooding. They tell you a story that, yes, there are increased, there's an extreme condition in the country, and this has ranged across the three different areas. We've seen it manifest in the form of temperature changes. We've seen it manifest in form of rainfall and even flooding. And what has all this, amounted to? We've seen that it's displaced over 50,000 people. And not only people have been affected, but we've also seen that farmlands have been destroyed in recent times. And they just set the stage with that, right? And they come and say, what has this now led to? That's the situation. What has this led to? We've seen increased awareness on the effects of climate change. And the way they word this is, they say this event have raised awareness on the effects of climate change. What is climate change? A topic which has been the subject of conversations in other developing and developed countries for decades. So what this person has done, literally, is they told you the situation. The comments, said this is the implication or the results, and they tell you that, and they try to they didn't just put you in the dark along the line, because now, if there was someone that was reading this who was not fully aware of what climate change is or what has been happening in climate change, they also put something in to say, this is a topic that has been the subject of conversations in other countries, which means that it has not been such a big subject in Nigeria, right? And they talk about how, and then herein comes the complication. Remember that I said that whenever you're writing something, it's always good to provide a balanced view. Herein lies the complication. They said that truly, Nigeria only emits a small portion. And they give us the number. Circa 0.5% of global greenhouse emissions is from Nigeria today. So it's a small portion. But then they add the fact that this is expected to grow in line with what is expected to happen, which is accelerated urbanization and industrialization. Now, they put the icing on the cake by talking about how when you match the effects of this climate change with acute energy poverty in the country, which has then been exacerbated, which, we can say worsened by a rise in the cost of energy generation from fossil fuel. So what this person has done is they had taken the three different problems. One is there is a climate change problem. There's a climate change problem, but then there's also an energy access problem in the country, right? Now, the energy access problem has become worse because now people can no longer afford to consistently get funding or generate their power from fossil fuel, because now there's no longer fuel subsidy. But they didn't even need to put fuel subsidy there. Sometimes less is more. They didn't need to put fuel subsidy. They just told us that, when you match the effect of climate change, which has caused, rain, flooding, increased temperature, when you match that with the fact that there's no power in the country, and now the people's go-to source has now been made more expensive, there is a need. There's clearly a need for clean energy. With the way this person presented this, if you were an investor, if you were not aware before of how serious or severe the problem was, what this has done is it has helped you to put perspective. And the person wraps it up by saying, these reasons further necessitate an increase in clean energy. And they leave it at that. And then they go and talk about, because this company, the person that wrote this is trying to get private investors to come into the play, they go and talk about, look, the government is on your side. The government is aware of this need. They start by saying appraise of this, because again, everything you write should be a continuation of one sort or the other. So there are a lot of words you can use as continuous. You can use furthermore, firstly. You can use in line with this. You can use keeping with their goal. There's a lot of phrases, a lot of words you can use. Now, this person, but because we're talking about a need here, the person continues by saying, appraise of this need, the government has committed, to achieving universal energy access by 2030, and they've done this in their energy transition plan. Now, then this is where the catch is. Achieving this goal requires substantial patient capital. It requires patient capital, it requires innovative solutions and platforms to ensure accountability. And they close it by saying, well, one of the ways to do this is to adapt a carbon market. So all along, what this person was getting at was to say, we need to adapt a carbon market. But what they started by doing is setting the stage. And that's something that you need to do when you're storytelling, right? You don't just go on to say, for your summary page, for sure, you have to get straight to it. Remember, we had said that you have your governing thoughts, you have your 3 sub-bullets, and you have your sub-bullets, which is great for that one pager. But when you go in and you talk about the industry, for example, you definitely need to take people on a journey, because you have 10 pages to write. You don't want to start by saying, we need a carbon market, period. Right? You need to take people on a journey. And so this person started by telling us about climate change, telling us about what this has caused and how, it's not a topic that is, spoken about often in the country. And what they've gone on to do is tell us that, this is already something that people in other countries are taking quite serious. And so we have to start looking at it. And then they go on to talk about how, well, not only should we be worried about or concerned about climate change, we should also be worried about the fact that we don't even have energy in the country. And even though the government is aware of this and they are trying to get there, we need capital, we need, innovative solutions, and we need accountability from organizations, big organizations, who emit a lot of them, who have a lot of emissions from their operations, and they have come to where they really want us to get to, which is the fact that we want to adapt a carbon market. So when you think about writing, you want to think about ensuring that, one, you have a key theme, and then you have things that sort of supports those key themes. And then when you're writing like the full thing, maybe, the sectoral breakdown, you want to take us on a bit of a journey so that we can see some of the things that you're getting at, and we can see all the different parts. We see, what the situation is, what the complication is, and what the overall solution is. I think I'll stop here for now and see if we have any questions, but this is all I had for you today. I guess what we have now is just a bit of a question session, and then we can wrap it up from here.
Okay, thank you so much, Olaide. That was very, very interactive. And so far, please, if you have any questions, or if you need any clarity, or if you even want to react or add anything, you can either indicate by raising up your hand, unmuting yourself, or just dropping it in the chat. Then I'll read it out. And like she said, she was in your shoes some years ago. So if you want to ask her, specific questions, you can also do that. And if there are no questions, I'll just assume that all of the interactions made everything very clear. There is nothing to add, and we're good to go.
Okay. In the absence of any questions, thank you all so much for joining Thanks for the participation. I had a great time discussing storytelling, and I wish you all the best in your report submission. Hopefully, I meet with you all again during the presentation phase, and then we can discuss presentations. But thank you. Enjoy the
Thank
rest
you
of
so
the
much,
evening.
Olaide. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening. Oh, somebody just said the report shared was very complex. So the report that was shared was the winner's report from last year.
So I'll try and answer Kalu. I think that's Kalu.
Yeah.
So Kalu, yes, I think the idea behind doing that is to ensure that you see what the bar could look like, what the bar should look like. I beg your pardon. Because at the end of the day, it's a global competition. You're not only competing with the 14 people on this call, but all the other people that are part of the CFA Nigeria competition group. Your reports, if you win at this stage, is the same reports that you're going to use to compete at the regional level. I'm not sure the level of information that you currently have. And so the goal is to ensure that you are preparing for a global competition, which is what this competition is. Because at the end of the day, when your report, and hope you know that winning the competition is 50% presentation, 50% report writing. So your report writing is a significant part of that. And so what we've seen is a lot of people don't remember when they're writing their reports that, look, this is what you should be aiming for. That is the bar you're going for. So I showed that report because I didn't just want to show a Nigeria report or just a regular. I wanted to see this is what counterparts did in the last year that made them win at the global stage, because that's what will happen to whoever is representing Nigeria at the EMEA regionals or even at the global finals, right? So that is the bar. And when you say it was complex, well, I guess we can chalk it up to the fact that it's a different industry, but quite frankly, these are things that you should already be familiar with in a way or the other, because your report should have all those elements and more. Maybe not a lot of the graphs, right? Which requires a little bit of specialty, but in terms of the writing, that is literally the level that we expect that your reports will measure up to when you eventually write them, right? So if you haven't already done that by now, I would suggest downloading some of the previous winners' reports and familiarizing yourself with them and seeing how you can structure and ensure that you don't have any lapses when you start writing yours. I hope
Thank you,
that answers
Olaide.
your question, Kalu.
Just to add, we will also share the winners' report on the. I knew somebody was going to ask that. We'll share it on the group chat, and so that you can familiarize yourself. And again, everybody has to also help themselves. You have to be willing to help yourself. Like Olaide stated, you also have to go through there. You just search the internet. A quick Google search would help you get the previous winners report. But this particular one, I have a copy of it, so I'll just share it on the group chat for everybody to not to copy it, but just familiarize yourself with it and see how that can help you. I can't see any other questions. So thank you all once again. I hope that so far we have been able to impact and people have been able to pick one or two things in the sessions we've had this weekend and the previous weekends. I'll see you again next weekend. With that, I say have a very, very good evening. Thank you once again for joining. Goodbye. Oh, we are done. We are done. We are done.